We'll start the Board of Commissioners meeting of June 6th. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, we do have one change to the agenda. We did hand out a revised Human Resources Department agenda. There just was a typo on the agenda that was included in the packet, so this is a revised one.
Okay.
I'll move the agenda.
Been moved and second with changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We'll quickly take a couple of committee reports. Let's start in with Kip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After the last board meeting, I had my East visits up at the high school to talk to the senior class, tell them about being an elected official with Mr. Lavens from the City Council. Had Bill Bassett's funeral or wake that he had. There was a good turnout of people down there. A person that's been a pillar in this community for a long time and been out of the business for quite a while, but still a lot of people showed up and still stayed very active. So it was good to see all the people down there. At our EMS meeting, we are working on some fundraisers for this summer. Had a couple little glitches in some programs and getting some stuff put together. It was supposed to be in July, but they moved it to August or September area just to make sure they get everything set up the way they want to. Things are going pretty well there. We didn't get any extra money from the state this year, so we are running on a shoestring budget. We are funded for the next couple years, but still always alarming when you have the seatbelt money, which is good that it's going down because people are wearing their seatbelts. But that is our funding for that EMS or part of it. So then we had another land use plan open house over in Mapleton. Had probably 15 or 18 people show up. Had a good discussion. We talked a little bit more in depth about some land use plans, more of what we would like to see instead of just trying to get everyone to say what they'd like to see. We gave some examples, I guess is what they did. And it worked out really good because it sparked a lot of good discussion about having some of these home-based businesses out in the rural area and how do we protect our shorelands and our sensitive areas. So had a nice meeting there. It was a couple hours. And then we had the Memorial Day services. I got the 3 different services. It was always nice to see. Tom McLaughlin, the past commissioner, did a fine job at the Vietnam Memorial. They have a really good turnout there every year, and I thought it was a wonderful program out there. Then we had our 2 ditch meetings that we're going to see in a few minutes here, and everything went okay with those. We got a lot of issues, but it's a lot of expensive projects to do, but I think most people understand that you got to spend the money to keep the ditches going. And then yesterday I had my MRCI meeting, and we are everything's going pretty well up there. We're running and had a couple slow months the last couple months, so we're keeping an eye on the budget and trying to deal with that. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Kip. So you can be real short, Will?
Yep, mine's very short.
Okay.
On the 18th, I had a conference call with the Rural Minnesota Energy Board, the executive committee, to talk about budget issues. And then on the 22nd, we had the PACE committee meeting where we approved a couple of additional PACE loans. And then the Rural Minnesota Energy Board meeting that day also. Talked about dues. We'll be going back to the standard dues. We've reduced dues for several years, but now we've drawn down the surplus we had, so we'll be back to the regular dues that we paid, which is $2,500. So on the 24th, we had the extension interviews. We interviewed 3 excellent candidates. I understand the offer has been made to one of the individuals, and it's not yet public. So, and then I also attended the Memorial Day services at Vernon Center, and then yesterday I had my monthly briefing with the folks at Crystal Seasons in Lake Crystal. So that's my report.
Right. That's awesome. Good. Thanks, Will. All right. I think at this point we'll have Ryan Tilgerson, county engineer, come up and And kind of, we have it changed in the order noted here in the agenda. And going out to the fly-in, transportation fly-in out,
Yes, sir.
National Association of Counties.
Thank you for moving me up earlier.
And we're happy to do that, and that's where Van Struenberg is, Commissioner Struenberg, because he had to lay the groundwork for you.
All right, well, I do have a relatively action-packed agenda. I did leave off the majority of the informational items for sake of time, and I'll cover those during the upcoming June 13th work session. First order of business is consideration of the bids for the County Road 109 project, CP 4109. Here's a copy of the bid abstract. We received some outstanding bids. We had 5 bidders on the project actually, and the apparent low bidder was Mathewoods Construction Company at $1.09 million, which was 20% under our estimate.
Wow.
That's something.
Fantastic numbers so far this year. You know, we've had other years where they all come in high, so we're just riding a good wave this year. This project is obviously to return the road, regrade it, update the drainage, and return it to a gravel base for the year, and then we'll pave and shoulder it for remain next year in 2018. So I would recommend award of the contract to Mathewoods Construction Company in the amount of $1,086,519.48.
I'll move that.
Second.
It's been moved second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
All,
They've done a good job. I mean, they're the one that did the road did 17 from Mankato all the way to Eagle Lake.
So I know they're interested in our County Road 12 project as well, still having Highway 22 and 109 and work within the region.
okay. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Second order of business is consideration of the contract final payment, pay request number 2 for CP 7125, which is the tree clearing on County State Highway 12, Stage 5. Contractor was Castle Rock Contracting and Tree. The final payment amount is $2,079. I would recommend filing this contract out.
So moved.
Second.
Moved second. Any discussion?
How did it go?
Well, it was a real low value contract, as you can see by the title page. Total contract amount was $38,000. It was just for the tree clearing on the project so that we could remove them during the winter months and not have to go through the northern long-eared bat and endangered species work because of the federal funds and the Army Corps of Engineers permit. So it's easier to go around than it is to go through. Let's put it
I know
that
some
way.
of the trees in Mankato, that could have been 38 trees, but I'm sure they took out more than 38 trees.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
All right. Item number 3, consideration of master partnership contract with the state of Minnesota. This is a collaborative partnering agreement that is providing technical services. MnDOT does numerous technical services for the county. This agreement is necessary for them to have a mechanism to perform those activities. If you look at Exhibit A at the back of the agreement, that lists out all of the different activities that they perform for us. So I would recommend authorization of this agreement.
What page is that on again?
There's 13 pages of the agreement, and
Okay.
then there's 4 pages of the technical services that they provide.
Page 20, Commissioner.
And this is something that we've done before many
Yep,
times,
this is
right?
continued, this is just updating the existing master partnership agreement that we have with the state. It allows us to enter into contract with each other.
Every 4 years, I think it is, or
I
something.
believe so.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the contract? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
All right. Item number 4, all of the MnDOT agreements require a resolution from the county board, so this is a resolution supporting the master partnership authority, and it also grants future authorized representation for the county engineer to act on behalf of Lower County.
Okay.
Let's see. So I had
Are you looking for the page number again?
I had one question, yeah, just on one part of the,
Okay.
you know, where it lists you, I think this is the contract I looked at, I forgot to number it. Authority of the engineer, is this the one? Or is that the next one coming up? One of them was, anyway, it was, where it only lists you as the other person for our county, representing our county.
And is that typical? What, I was just thinking,
This
what if
is-
you're sick, or what if something
Well, the
happens?
county, generally speaking, if it's the county engineer or successor or designee.
Would it be a
So,
designee? I just want to ask that
yeah, and
question
then-
to Pat too, because
Yeah.
I saw the state had two names, listed. Maybe they do that for a purpose too, I don't know, but I just.
And I believe if you look at position descriptions, the assistant county engineer is
fill in when you're
listed
not around.
to act in the absence
Okay,
of the county
thank you.
engineer or
Just wanna
I'm sure
make
it could be
sure.
duly designated.
Good question.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
All right. Item number 5 is to consider MnDOT agreement for federal participation in advanced construction for SP 007-612-21. That's agreement number 1028201. This is for County State Aid Highway number 12. Because the county desires to proceed with the construction of the project in advance of the year that the federal funding is programmed, we need to have this agreement in place. We do have federal STIP money program for fiscal year 2017, but we also have STIP money program for 2020. So when that 2020 money becomes available, it'll be reimbursed to Blue Earth County. So we're advance funding $1 million this year, and then we'll get that paid back to us, and we'll utilize that for future construction program. So this 2017 STIP money is 1.274 million, and then the 2020 money that's projected is $1.596 million.
I'll move for
It's
approval
been
on that.
moved. In second.
Second.
Second. Catch that.
And this
Any
one-
discussion?
This is the one, yeah,
This
okay.
was 12.
Is that 1027701? Or is it the one?
That's 1028201.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right.
There's a lot of
Any-
MnDOT agreements today.
Yeah, I know, I was just trying to get them straight.
They all kind of came in at the same time.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
And then item number 6 would be a resolution for federal participation for advanced construction in agreement 1028201. This is again a supporting resolution provided by the state that they require to accompany the agreement.
So moved.
It's been moved. There's a second.
Yep.
Discussion? Questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Fantastic.
That's
All right, item number 7. Consider MnDOT Cooperative Construction Agreement for SP 007-612-021. This is agreement number 1027701. This is the cooperative agreement that would require MnDOT to pay for their share of the Highway 83 and County State Highway 12 roundabout. And then they also pay for a share of the construction inspection and construction engineering costs as well. This also details the future maintenance requirements of the county and of the state for that intersection.
Move approval.
been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor say aye. What?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed. Carries.
Item number 8 is resolution for federal participation in cooperative agreement 1027701. Again, the resolution accompanying the actual agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Everybody understands the motion. Any
This is
further
where it's just
discussion?
authorizing the chair and the county administrator.
Yep.
Yes, and that one was provided to me blank, so I thought to play it safe, I'd best
Write
to
the
leave the
names.
board and the chair and the administrator, and if we do have to have any further amendments, I'll bring them to one of you gentlemen for execution.
Okay.
All right. Okay, those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
All right.
Ends all those.
Wonderful. The 9th item is the resolution prohibiting alcohol at the Red Jacket Valley Park. This stemmed from a conversation with Sheriff Peterson and his recommendation and request that the park be prohibited for alcoholic consumption based on past issues that the city of Mankato had with Henniker Pit, and they ended up prohibiting alcohol, which did help to clean the park area up considerably. And speaking with Paul Vogel in the past, he had also recommended that the county consider that. So when the sheriff brought it forth, I obviously sent an email to you gentlemen, and I know there was desire to have further discussion. While there may have been strong support, there was desire to have public discussion, which I think is absolutely warranted. So with that being said, I have brought forth a resolution with the thought that if we don't allow it at this point in time. It makes it much easier for us to crack down on it in the future and stop the issue from ever becoming a legitimate problem.
I'll move approval for discussion.
Moved.
Second?
Been moved and second. Any discussion, questions?
I had some questions too, and some comments. I do know that this would be the only county park out of about 16 properties that we have.
Correct.
It would be then, whereas,
The other county parks, we do allow alcoholic beverages. They cannot be in glass containers and no kegs are allowed. So that's our
Yeah.
county ordinance for
Yeah.
the parks. Yes, so this would be not in conjunction with those parks.
yeah. I can see where there's some similarities because it is a sort of a pit park, but it's about, I don't know, 3 miles or 4 miles out of town, isn't it? How many miles out of town is it?
Yeah, 2 to 3.
Yeah. I know that we try to alleviate worries about those things, but I was just wondering, because we haven't had a chance to even talk about this at a work session, or, I mean, and I know that you have the authority as the director, I mean, of Public Works, probably just to implement it if you wanted to. If we could bring it up at a work session, table it till then, or table it and let it go to the Parks Advisory Board and then bring it back to the board with their recommendations too, to see what they say.
Yeah, the thought was just to get it out, as early as possible, just in order to,
Yeah. I know you want
again,
to
to
get that
prohibit, stop it before it may become a problem.
Yeah.
This was again at the sheriff's request, and I'm supportive of that idea.
sign. Yeah.
Would it be appropriate to pass the resolution today and then run it through we can always change it back.
That's,
But it's out there, we already have the sign up, or?
We have a sign stating no kegs or glass bottles. We
Okay.
wanted to cover our bases prior to the
That way
holiday
it would
weekend.
be out there and we could still run it through that process. And if there's strong feelings to bring it back, I don't know if I would support it, no matter what the argument is, because I think that probably is good policy not to have alcohol out there.
Really?
It'd almost be worth having non-alcohol in all of our parks, but that ain't gonna happen because we've already allowed it, And I don't think been a big issue, but I'm not sure what would change my mind, but would
Really?
that be an appropriate way to handle it? Yeah.
I mean, just because eventually it's not developed yet, the park's not developed. So it's not really developed into a park. I mean, when you go out there, I was just out there over the holiday weekend.
So you did see the grading that we had done at the beach
Oh,
area,
yeah.
and everything's
Yeah.
shaping up
Certainly done
nicely.
it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't look like a park yet at all. I mean, when you go out there, it's, it's pretty vacant.
Right.
The roads are very much roughed in. When I went out there on the holiday at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was one family using the park, and they were fishing on the edge of the pond.
Yeah.
Now, if that guy, as a dad and his mom, would have had a can of beer in his little cooler, which was sitting by him, which he probably did have a can of beer, he could get a ticket for that. And I just, almost all of our parks you can do that. You know what I mean? You can fish by the river, or you can fish by a lake.
And I think the intent of this is more or less to stop the large gatherings with a cooler full of beverages and that tend to get out of hand and create some of those issues that law enforcement has seen in the past.
This has been a notorious party spot as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Even when it was a functioning gravel pit, we had problems with parties and stuff out there. And my desire is to turn it into a family-friendly facility. And I think that from my standpoint, I think if we start out banning alcohol and it doesn't work, we can always revisit it again. I understand what you're saying, that a lot of families are going to be out there and enjoy a adult beverage or two and not cause any problems. But in light of the problems that we've had in the past, even before it was a county park, I'd like to try the alcohol prohibition to start out with. So,
I think it's harder to go from no alcohol to allowing it, because once you decide that, then it's going to take a tremendous amount of effort to go back to just no alcohol. I think it's the other way around almost. And so I think to create an environment that's different than we have at the rest of our parks. In fact, there's a park right next door across the road, and they allow alcohol, and there's a little picnic shelter there, and you can set up and have your cooler of pop and beer or whatever you have with you and enjoy a beverage. And that's right across the street. And it's connected to this park.
I guess the concern is the ones where you have the beach areas, where you generally have more problematic.
No, I see that.
Issues.
But is this because the deputies don't want to go out there ever to patrol it, you think?
I don't believe that's the case. I think it's just taking fuel away from the fire.
Because it's supposed to close down
We
at a
do
certain
have
hour.
a person who comes out and closes the gate. Whether they'll
Yeah.
continue to do so for us is another item. They're just performing that task.
Yeah,
The sheriffs will go out there and do their patrols, but it will make it more difficult as well if people are out there consuming, to ask them to leave. They may not be as accommodating
Yeah.
if they're imbibing.
I could see it more if it was a campground. Do you know what I mean? Then to be more concerned, maybe be more restrictive. But because it's just a day park, and you have to be out of there by sunset, from what I understand. I mean, I think
Well,
it's,
that's the park rule, but again, that's the
Yeah.
hard thing to enforce when it's such a large park and that person doesn't have a means of.
but it's never functioned. It's actually been trespassing to be in there before.
Correct.
So it's never functioned as a park. And so to prohibit something without any reasons for it, I think is kind of a knee-jerk reaction to fear more than it is, or to something that happened at Henniker Pond. Maybe a lot of the police officers that are on our deputy force are from Mankato and they just hated dealing with Henniker Pond. I don't know. I just know that it really limits things when you start to have to limit that kind of a thing, so that normal families that normally are careful and have one can of beer or something like that with them, and just saying, well, you're not allowed to have that, or if that's in your cooler, you run the risk of getting a ticket written. A lot of people fish the edge of that river. Let's just say that a kayak pulls up along the edge of that river, which we've talked about having some landings, and they want to venture into the park, for whatever reason, have a picnic or do whatever they want to do, which I think they will do. Typically, a lot of people who picnic too, that use little canoes and that sort of thing, will have a can of beer with them in the cooler, and so they would also be subject to getting a ticket by just entering that boundary. And I just think that it's a little bit overbearing. I'm sorry.
I can't speak as to
Sorry.
what level of enforcement would be performed. That's not my department's task, I guess.
But we've got 15 or 16 properties in the county, and I haven't heard that we've had horrendous troubles with people. It's enforced. They get, if somebody's doing something out of hand, they should be told not to do it. And that's typically how most parks operate, to my knowledge. And so to prohibit something in advance because of just a few opinions expressed about it, I think is putting something out there that, number one, we're not even utilizing our Parks Advisory Board, which I think is important to utilize. To go to them for advice, have them hash it over, talk about it like we do with our other advisory committees that we have with the county. And I understand the sheriff's fear, there might be some issues out there, but if that park's supposed to be shut down at 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, and somebody's in there, they're gonna get it for trespassing too. So, I just don't think that it's,
And valid, the only thing I guess that I would want to point out before you guys vote or further discussion is that those parks where we do have larger crowds gathering also have full-time caretakers. Daly,
well, we only
Bray,
have
and Duck all have
three, I guess, three.
all have full-time caretakers where you have those larger gathering areas, and especially the aquatic features that's going to draw people to those parks. Where you're going to have a larger social event. Those do have full-time caretakers that are policing it. This park does not. It only has somebody that's, their job is to open and close the gate. So I just want to point that out.
Okay.
And that's,
Well, it sounds like you got enough votes here to pass it anyway, probably, 'cause I don't know where Mark's at on this, but it sounds like Kip's for it, Will's for it. He's got 30 years or 20-some years on the force, so he's gonna, probably want to vote that direction. I don't know, but I just think that, Vance isn't here, so I haven't heard what he has to say about it. But I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to fear of looking into the future, and it limits responsible adult behavior, which we should expect from everybody. And so, and we have enforcement for people who don't. And so, I don't support it myself. I'm sorry. Right at this point, if there was more discussion allowed, that we could get all the input kind of about it and why it's necessary. And I know historically, if you drive out there, you'll think this should be a party spot because it's been literally uncontrolled. And I think as we develop it into a park, it's going to be much more controlled. There'll be other people using it. you know, that go through there, and there'll be eyeballs watching it, and hopefully the county sheriff will drive through there, or deputies, periodically when they're in the area to let people know, hey, you know, you can't get out of hand here. You know, this is a park for everybody's use.
Okay.
And that's what I believe.
All right.
What do you think, Mark? What do you think about it?
Well, I think there's safety issues with the deep ponds, you know, and people get inebriated, and so I
So that's your
yeah, I think it's makes sense to do the, you know, it's not a same park as all the other ones that we have. It's different.
I mean the ones with
And
lakes
it's remote enough
rivers.
that it'll be where they're gonna go. They wanna go. With that, I guess we got the motion in front of us. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just one informational item for your knowledge. I'll bring the majority of them back to you. But we do have authorization to advertise County State Highway 12, so that is out in the paper. We're tentatively planning on opening bids June 21st. However, we may have to push that back. Central office at MnDOT has once again hamstrung us, and while they gave us authorization to advertise, we haven't seen signed plans back. So we're anticipating those today or tomorrow in electronic format so that we can post them online and get them out to the bidders that want to get their hands on them. But we also want to make sure that we provide bidders with adequate time to review those documents and study them and give us good sharp bids. So we're hoping to bring those to you for award in early July.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you,
All
Ryan.
right, thank
Have
you.
a good
Have a
trip.
good day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
safe trip.
Yep.
Have a safe trip, Ryan.
Thank you.
Bring us,
Good day, guys.
bring us lots of money
I'll
back.
try to bring it.
Get him to do earmarks again out there, will you?
No, they don't. I'll see if I can.
All right. Just at this time, we'll proceed with our judicial ditch hearings. I want to say good morning and welcome to we'll have Craig and Ryan come up. I want to say good morning and welcome to the final hearing on the proposed improvements to Judicial Ditch 34. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for the drainage project with all matters pertaining to in detail with the survey report and the viewers' reports. And we will start with the jurisdictional documents. So with that, Craig?
Okay. The hearing notice was mailed to landowners on May 1st, 2017. The hearing notice publication was published in the Free Press on May 4th, May 11th, and May 18th, all of 2017. Hearing notice was posted at the courthouse. Next, we have the DNR report, and we also have an amendment to that report to read into the record. From the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, addressed to myself, Craig Austinson, Ditch Manager. Subject, final engineer's report, Judicial Ditch 34, Blue Earth County, Minnesota. Dear Mr. Austinson, on behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological and Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments in the final engineer's report for the project referenced above in accordance with the Minnesota Statutes 103E.301. Page 6 of the final engineer's report indicates a storage pond will be included to reduce peak flow rates, total suspended solids, and phosphorus levels. Additional hydraulic data is needed to evaluate its effectiveness. The data should include water velocities, cubic feet per second, and retention for all rainfall events. The current design of the storage pond appears to be to allow base flows to pass directly through the pond with a limited retention time. The design should be modified to allow an increased treatment settling of the base flows as well as high flows. A wet basin with the entire bottom at an elevation of 989 will allow for higher level of sediment and nutrient reduction. Design should also take into account emergency overflow in order to prevent scouring or pond failure if the top grate were to become plugged by floating vegetation. The hydraulic data in Appendix D shows decreased flows at the main line outlet with dramatic increases from the contributing tiles for up to for the 10-year event, including a 101% at the mainline outlet, 23% increase at branch 1, 812% at branch 6, and 4,280% at lateral D. The pond will not be able to adequately treat these flows if the storage pond is redesigned to be a wet basin. The replacement tile should be replaced in kind, reduced in size, or storage pond should be larger. Further coordination should occur with the landowners concerning wetland restorations that will retain water and reduce excess nutrients from being transported downstream. The final engineer's report identifies one potential basin in the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter, section 8 of what would be Luray Township. A field inspection showed several additional locations where potential wetland restoration could occur. The site is located in the north of 224th Lane in the southwest of the northeast quarter, section 6, and the second site is located in northeast southeast, section 5, all of Luray. Under Minnesota Statute 103E.015, considerations before the work is done, the effects of the proposed drainage project on the wetlands is supposed to be addressed. Engineer comments indicate that the project is not anticipated to negatively affect wetlands. However, the Minnesota DNR provided the following comment on the preliminary engineer's report. The preliminary engineer's report indicates 885 feet of the existing ditch that outlets into Eagle Lake will be cleaned out and lowered. The ditch goes through an emergent and forested wetlands identified in the actual wetland inventory. Minnesota DNR recommends that the ditch only be cleaned out to the tile outlet to the wetland boundary approximately 385 feet with limited or no deepening. Having the outlet flow through the wetlands will allow sediment and excess nutrients to be removed before entering Eagle Lake. If the design change prevents adequate drainage, the final engineer's report should include the justification for impacting the wetlands, indicate how the impacts will be mitigated. The engineer should also ensure that the work does not extend below the ordinary high water level of the public water Eagle Lake. The final engineer's report did not address our comment required to need 885 feet of deepening or the potential impacts to the wetland. In addition, our agency requested that our comment letter be included in the final engineer's report with corresponding response in order to improve coordination. Minnesota DNR, under Minnesota Statute 103E.301, finds the final engineer's report to be incomplete and not in accordance with the provisions due to lack of resolution of issues raised in the preliminary engineering report in this letter. Additional coordination needs to occur concerning design and effectiveness of the storage ponds, tile size, ditch cleanouts, and potential wetland impacts. And please contact Kevin Mixon at Environmental Assessment Ecologist and assign Jim Seal, Assistant Regional Manager. In the amendment, again, from the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Ecological and Water Resources, addressed to myself, Craig Ostens, Blue Earth Ditch Manager. Subject to final engineer's report, amendment number 1, judicial ditch number 34. On behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological Waters, Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, Minnesota, I offer the following comments on the final engineer's report, Amendment 1. Minnesota DNR provided a response letter for the final engineer's report on March 27th, 2017. The amendment was satisfactorily addressed, and our concerns with the project provide the storage pond as outlined in the amendment is included in the construction of the project. If the pond storage is not included due to cost or other considerations, we would like to be notified so further coordination can occur concerning downstream flows and water quality impacts. And again, we're supposed to contact Kevin Mixon, Regional Environmental Assessment Ecologist, if we should have any questions. And again, signed Jim Seal, EWR Assistant Regional Manager.
Okay.
And that's it for the jurisdictional documents.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Does the petitioner's attorney at this time have any comments to make? And if so, please come forward to state your name and... Oh. All right. Okay, then how about the time do we have a hearing from the project engineer? Chuck Randall? Morning, Chuck.
Good morning.
Chuck.
Good morning, Chuck.
Thank you. Can I get it switched so we can show the screen? My screen?
Mhm. Do you have it hooked up?
Yep, it's all hooked up.
That would be,
Okay.
is that what you're looking for?
Yep. So JD 34, you saw the DNR comments. This project was originally constructed approximately 100 years ago. Approximately 9 or 10 years ago, there was some televising that was completed on this project, and this is what was found in some areas. Some areas of the pipe were in good shape, but there were areas where we had collapsed pipe, cracked pipe, and I just took one picture to show kind of generally what's going on. We had a meeting last Wednesday with landowners. We went over the entire project. There were some minor changes that occurred since that meeting. The original watershed boundary was just under 1,000 acres, and after that meeting, there's been approximately 123 acres that have been added. On the map on the screen, it might be hard to see, but they're shaded in red. The red line is the watershed boundary. The proposed project is to replace 24 and 18-inch main line with a 36 and 30-inch main line. The rest of the entire system will be replaced as part of the project. There's with a minimum of a half-inch drainage coefficient. And since we went through all of the branches at the last meeting, I won't go through all of them at this time unless there's a specific question on them. Depth will be gained on the system, with the end of the system having at least 5 feet of cover. The DNR did have comments on where the pond location was and what was being completed at the outlet of the system. What we changed to satisfy those comments was to move the pond from the Koppelman property to the Kurtz property. It's slightly lower. There's less excavation there, but we're able to create a maintained water in the bottom with a channel that kind of curves around to increase detention time. And then we're also able to shorten up the amount of cleaning that we're doing on the end of the open ditch so that no cleaning will occur in wetland areas. So we've modified those along with providing an emergency overflow on the pond. It puts the pond next to a wetland area, kind of a larger natural area. In the end, it cheapened the project by approximately $2,000 to make this change. At the landowner meeting, I did not get any negative feedback on the moving of the pond. Also, something that's occurring in this project is on the Koppelman property, a solar farm is being planned. We have been working with the designers and future owners of the solar farm to reroute branch 2 around the solar farm. There are some extra costs associated with that, and as part of the agreement when the solar farm was put in front of you, those extra costs are going to be paid for by the solar farm, and there's approximately $18,000 of extra costs. One other change, zoomed in where, we'll zoom in a little bit more. On the main line that's not shown on the map, we had a landowner that has a home site, and he would like the tile moved off of that entire home site, so we're going to reroute that if the project is approved on the main line. There was another addition at the landowner meeting on lateral C that was proposed to just extend about 400 feet, and now that's been extended into land that is currently being drained in the watershed, and now we've added to the watershed. So there was an addition of a 12-inch pipe that was asked for at the informational meeting. So we're recommending including that in the project. We
Can I
have
ask you a quick question about that last
yeah.
thing? Is that right, Mr. Chair? So does that drain the watershed further than what was before planned, or what with that extension? I'm just curious what that's about.
According to that landowner, he had already tiled into the system, but since he's being assessed in the system, he wanted to be included on the improvement. So we extended the improvement to his property, so he has an outlet to the public system.
Okay.
So, 'cause right now his land is not drained very well. So that purple line on the map shows, and it's hard to see on the TV screen, is the extension that we're asking for on lateral C. We did review the hydraulic calculations, and with the way the pond changes worked, we are matching or lowering peak flows out of the system, and that's why we did get that positive comments back from the DNR. And we did look at a few of the tile sizes, but in the majority of the work was on the pond for that amendment that was completed to satisfy their comments. The costs on the system, the original cost before we moved the pond, we had a net benefit, and when the viewers talk about the benefits, of about $68,000. With the redesign of the pond, we're about $69,000. The total cost of the project for landowners is just over 1.1 million. There's $961,000 of potential repairs if the system were repaired. So we're asking for separable maintenance to be used for that. So when you take the 1.1 million minus the 961, you get a net cost of 167,000. After the additions, have a small amount of repair costs, but most of the cost is additional improvement cost. So that cost is assessed to that landowner that's adding that area in. But adding 123 acres greatly increases the benefits on the property, because that wasn't included. So the benefits go up to approximately $480,000. Costs go up slightly, but you have a net benefit of $440,000. So it's our opinion at this point that the project is cost effective. It is feasible. There is a need. The system has areas that do need repairs. There's been flooding. There's been township road flooding. So we recommend approval of the project at this time.
All right, thanks, Greg. You have a question?
Can I ask him a question, or should I wait?
Maybe you want to wait till, yeah.
Ask him. Okay. Just when that pond got moved now, do they know about that? I'm just curious if the DNR knows that you moved the pond, you know?
Yes.
Because it's right up against the wetland, and I just didn't know what they might say about that. I just, does it change things a little bit?
The amendment that was completed and sent to them that they commented on showed the pond moved.
It did, okay.
Yes.
And then, so that will it still have the same kind of a banking system that you had described in your engineering with, I think there's some sort of netting of some sort, what do you call it, sort of a landscape netting that holds the aggregate back and that sort of thing? I mean, I'm just curious, or can you design it differently?
Well, we're not going to have any geofabric. We're going to have a rock overflow, a riprap overflow.
Okay.
So that way, if we get an event that's larger than a 100-year event, or we get a 10-inch rain event, the pond has a spot that it can overflow into the wetland and not blow out, not
it makes sense.
Erode.
The reason I bring that up is I've read articles over the last few years about some of this geomaterial that's being used in landscaping and ditches and on and on, hillsides, and they've been finding that some birds get caught in it and can't get out. They're finding that snakes, turtles, frogs, things like that are also getting caught in it and can't get out. And so it's actually killing all the wildlife in that region, in that particular area.
I've had success with it, and I've had failures with that type of material. We're not proposing anything on this project with that. The only fabric material we have would be underneath the rock overflow.
Okay.
So it'd be buried.
So hold it in place.
In case we get a real bad event. the rock doesn't wash away or go down. So that's a standard practice.
And
But we
then
don't have any of that, the GeoWeb or GeoFabric on this.
Yeah. And then the pond itself, since you're moving it, are you gonna also, and saving money, are you gonna propose it to be a little larger? Because they thought it would do a better job of treating the water, sediment and chemical treatment. And
We're
everything.
able to get a little bit more storage, but it's less excavation because we're moving it on the landscape, we're moving it lower. So some of the edge of the pond is being built up instead of excavated out. So
will it be a little larger, do you think?
slightly larger, but the big benefit is that we have a wet area on the bottom that's not just a straight line through, it's got a curve through it, so we can have some more travel time for that sediment to drop out before it goes into the wetland.
So it comes back out again.
Well, so it stays in the pond,
Yeah.
and then in 10 years we clean it out, just like an open ditch.
Oh, I see.
Anything else? Drew?
Just wondering if you consider putting in a larger pond. I didn't see anything about that anywhere.
We maximize the area. If you look on the screen, there's a whole bunch of contours on the north side of the pond. There's a little hill there. So we maximize the area along that wetland in the low area so we could get as much storage as possible without incurring a lot more cost with digging into that side hill.
Right.
So that's how we designed it.
Well, I think his letter was saying that it wasn't large enough. That's what I thought he said.
Yep. So we moved it and got it lower and more storage out of it.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Okay. He wasn't talking acreage then.
Yeah, he's talking volume of water that you're holding. So
Okay.
that's what we tried to do.
It's 10
feet deep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite deep.
Make it deep enough for walleye.
Wow.
Looking for
We
it.
want the water to drain out, so when the next storm comes, it can fill up, drain out, fill up.
All right. Any other questions there? Chuck? Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Chuck.
you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yep, for your report. And this is time we'll be hearing from the viewers. Ron and
Good morning. Thank
morning.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, Ron.
We as the viewers were appointed to do two different things in association with the proposed improvement. The first project that we worked on was the redetermination of benefits from the system as it currently exists, with the assumption that it's within a reasonable state of repair. In order to do that, we did our normal field investigation. We used the soils maps, GIS photos, the Minnesota LiDAR. We do a field investigation where we look at all lands within the watershed physically. We do that as a mass appraisal. Mass appraisal is that we go out and we determine a general classification of lands within this watershed and determine ultimately a value that we can apply to those areas. Those areas are typically determined as A, B, C, D. A being without artificial drainage, lands that would be standing water cattails and have no agricultural value. B lands would be lands that are seasonally flooded, with the highest and best use is hay and pasture. C lands are lands that are typically farmable, even without artificial drainage, but benefit from improved surface and or subsurface drainage. And D lands are upland acres that acre by acre don't need artificial drainage for production, but they do increase in value because intermixed with all the wetlands, nobody farms just the hilltops anymore, and they increase in productivity because of the ability to go out and farm it as a complete unit, so that there is value added even to those upland acres. We classified all of the acres. We then looked at potential benefit values to those acres. Benefit values are based upon two of the three considerations of market value. We look at sales as to the general indicator or the maximum amount of value that could be applied to any given acre is what a willing buyer and seller would pay for a piece of land with an adequate outlet and an adequate private tile. What would the highest value of a piece of land be?
But because under current market conditions, there are very few sales, well, there are no sales of wetland acres that will be converted to farmland, it makes it very difficult under a sales approach to go out and say, gee, there's a wetland like there was in 1920, we're going to drain it, then we're going to farm it. That doesn't happen. So we analyze and use the income approach to help break down the differences in value within that sale. Typically, that means that if you take a $7,000 per acre sale of an 80-acre tract, they may have some A acres, they may have some B, C, and D acres. Not every acre is valued the same. The average value of that 80 is the $7,000. So we break that down and we reconcile our income approach with the sales approach to where we're comfortable with the levels of value. This is done analyzing a typical ditch system design, which will take open ditches is 1 inch of runoff in 24 hours. We estimated production on an average annual basis of 190 bushel corn, 50 bushel beans, $4 for corn, $10 for bean. That's not current cash, but it is a weighted average, understanding that this is going to last a longer period of time than just this year's market. It'll go up and down with the market values. We use as much as we can a weighted current cost of production. The average production cost we used is $347.11. And we used a 50-50 crop rotation, although there may be other incidental crops. The market typically is a 50-50 rotation. So then as we determine benefit value, we look at the differences between those classes. The A lands, being those lowlands, will receive storms that exceed that drainage capacity. So they will not produce, even with a recommended capacity, 100% of the optimum yields. Over that 100-year rainfall cycle analysis, we estimate that they will produce, on an average annual basis, 92% of that optimum yield. The B acres or floodplain acres will produce 96%. The C acres, once properly tiled with an adequate outlet, are the most productive soils. And the D acres, we say, are about 99% because it does include some steeper hills in some of the areas within that class that aren't producing 100% of that optimum yield on an average basis. Adjust potential income for the percent of yield, subtract production cost. Then we also have to subtract from that change the value of the income without artificial drainage. So if we had B acres and they were usable for hay and pasture, we've estimated that hay and pasture value would be about $75 per year income, even if they weren't artificially drained. With the C and D acres, because they're farmable, we look at just the increase in production as to that change. We also then allow for the cost of private improvement. We've allowed $900 per acre for the cost of tiling all of these wet acres so that they can receive what we would estimate as the full production. Depreciated that over the same 25-year estimated life, and that gives us a net annual increase in income because of the drainage of these properties. To determine the present value of that future cash flow, we discount or use a capitalization formula that is a comparison of income versus market sales value. Currently, we are allowing only a 0.5% return on investment into farmland because income has dropped as the commodity prices have come down, but land values, especially for the good quality land, has not come down equal to the loss in income. So the market balances back to where you're getting about a 0.5% return on your investment in agricultural land right now. With that, we've estimated that the potential benefit for A acres would be $4,610, B acres $3,440, C acres $2,110, and the D acres at $590. In the redetermination, then, what we look at is understanding that the current system does not have recommended capacities. We worked with the engineer and did a reanalysis and said, well, instead of taking 30 cubic feet per second, we're going to say it only takes 25. What impact does that have on the production? Subsequently, then, what impact does that have on the value added because of that drainage? We estimate that the current system only provides about 50% of the value to the A acres, meaning that they're flooding out more frequently than it would with a properly sized system. The B acres are providing about 65% of their potential. The C acres, because of those restrictions, are getting 85%, and the D acres in the uplands are not really restricted very much. They're getting 95% of their potential. That gives us the current hydrologically adjusted benefit value for A acres of 2305, B acres 2236, C acres 1793, and the D acres 560. We take that value times the number of acres within each class for each parcel, and that would give us what we consider as our gross benefit. We do consider one other adjustment, and that is a cost to cure consideration, is if Craig has the ditch providing an outlet directly to his property and I'm a half a mile away, can we receive the same benefit? And the market says, no, you've got a cost of getting your water from your property across Craig's property to that ditch, and we try to leave that amount of additional value in a reduction of benefits so that once equal money is spent, everybody gets equal benefit for the same amount of drainage. So we make what we consider as a proximity adjustment and then get a net benefit. Within our report, the net benefit is our opinion of the value added to those parcels because the ditch system exists, assuming it's in a reasonable state of repair. As Chuck said, we did have meetings with individuals last week, and as far as the benefits of the current system, there was only one individual on ditch 34 that said that he had tiled water out of the original watershed. It's not a significant amount, but up in section 5, Terry Gutzel tiled 7.5 acres out of the watershed that we'll recommend to be removed from the redetermination. The redetermination includes additional benefits for tile benefits. Tile benefits are estimated at a value of $2.25 per foot, irregardless of the size of that tile. The sizing of the tile is to accommodate everybody else's water. If I'm at the bottom and I've gone that 24-inch tile, I still only need a 6 or an 8-inch tile for my outlet. I don't need 24. And it serves the same purpose as the 6-inch tile does at the very upper end as an outlet to connect all of your other tile to. So that's the valuation of the tile. As this system is all open ditch, there is no seeding area or buffer strip required. The buffer strip is done, any of the open ditch is down into the marsh area where there is no benefit, and therefore no damages were allowed for that outlet because of its current condition. Roads were benefited based on a reduced cost of construction and maintenance, as well as consideration of the water that they contribute to the need for the capacity of that system. With that, we have, with the adjustment, we have land benefits of $101,101,548.04. Road benefits of $25,323.75, or a recommended total benefit from the system as it exists of $1,126,871.79. In addition to the redetermination of benefits, we also did a determination of benefits for the system to reflect what values are added with the proposed improvements. That proposed improvement starts with the same potential that is provided by the ditch system that's out there. The difference is mostly in the hydraulic adjustment. If we have a system that is at a 1/4-inch drainage coefficient currently that is benefiting A acres, we're going to increase that to the 1/2-inch drainage coefficient. We reanalyze what potential benefit is gained by that improved outlet. As the design is up to a half-inch drainage coefficient, the only acres that we determined that would be restricted from meeting the full potential are the lowest A acres themselves. We started with 50% from the current system. It's our opinion that the improvement will add 45% more benefit to those A acres. 35% more to the Bs, 15 to the Cs, and 5 to the Ds, bringing the more upland acres into good quality recommended capacity drainage available to those properties. So instead of taking the acres times the current benefits, you take them times the adjusted improvement percentage, whereas the A acres benefit by $2,074, the B acres by $1,204, the C acres by $316, and the D acres only by $29.50. Multiply those across, make the same consideration for location within that watershed, and that equates into the benefits of the improvement itself. Within the report for the current system, we did not include those areas that were indicated in the red that are to be added because they're currently not within the system. What we have done then is we've looked at the benefits from adding those into the system as improvement benefits. That's why there's such a significant amount of improvement. They're going to increase the size, make it adequate to include adequate capacity to those additional acres, and therefore, if the improvement were to not go forward, those lands may choose to outlet into a different outlet if there is a better outlet available because they're not part of the system currently. So we have looked at adding those acres. As to additional benefits, there is one other consideration to those added lands. Because they are not paying part of the separable maintenance, it would be our recommendation that the report include an outlet fee equal to what their share of repairing the existing system would be. And that equates for the 120 plus acres to just about $100,000 worth of benefits that would have been on the redetermination if they would have been included in the current system. And therefore, as part of their using the system and becoming part of the system, that they should pay a fair share or an equitable share of the cost for rebuilding the system as a whole. And that can be done as acquiring an outlet fee. The benefits then would be added back equal to what everybody else is getting for future maintenance. But it's paying their share of the maintenance because they're not on that report. Also included within the improvement is the temporary damages for construction and for acquisition of the pond area. The pond area would be a permanent damage, and that would be paid for the taking and change of use of those acres. The construction easement areas are a temporary damage. It's typically figured that you get 1 year of lost production, where we pay cash rent value, and we allow a second year's average cash rent value because the first year after compaction and construction, you're not going to get full production out of those acres impacted. So what we typically do is allow a 2-year cash rent for the project, one for the loss of production the 1 year, the second for a year or two of reduced production when you bring it back into full fertility. So as Chuck said, generally what we then have is no additional benefits to the roads for improvements. So we have $483,590 worth of benefits from the improvement, and we have $99,903.60 in recommended outlet fees to be spread against those new properties to help pay for the maintenance of the current system. Damages for construction in the right-of-way will be adjusted depending on actual construction impact. but we've estimated the damages to 64.31 acres at $43,461.
Okay.
Damages applied incorrectly if you have fulfillment of funds, is that correct?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Damages will be adjusted. I did not have the pond relocation.
Okay.
So that's why I said damages will be shifted from one farm to the other to match the actual damage areas. Because the reports were submitted before the alternate and the change in the pond location were submitted, and I thought about it, but I did not get that changed in the report. Good catch, Craig.
All right. Okay.
I
Chuck?
have them changed in the cost estimate, the damages.
Yeah.
So the cost estimate is correct with
Okay.
the current damages.
The amount.
Yep, the amount, yes.
Yeah, and just like the changes Chuck had talked about for that I did not change my estimated costs this morning as to the actual costs. They're not changed significantly from the preliminary costs that were involved.
All right. Thanks, Ron. At this point, we're now open to the public comment portion of the hearing, and this hearing is being recorded. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. As a courtesy, others wishing to comment, please limit your remarks to 3 to 4 minutes. At this point, do we have anybody wishing from the public to come forth with comment? Again, if anybody here wishes to comment, please come forward to the podium, state your name, address. One of the viewers. Oh, that's right. What's the accounting commissioner?
My name's Lyle Grosskreutz, Eagle Lake.
Morning, Good morning.
They mentioned the proposed.
You want to speak up for everybody?
Yeah, those
The mic?
speakers aren't on, I can tell you right now. I don't
Yeah.
hear anybody's voice coming out of the speakers in here.
Oh.
So I don't know what's going on, but.
Did you hear mine even?
No.
Really? I can't.
You hear him coming out of it?
It's coming out there.
Just seems
It,
to go ahead
it
now.
comes
Go
out,
ahead
he just
now.
has to be, a little
I'll try and
closer.
talk louder.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
They
you.
mentioned the proposed change in the tile around my property. I'm the owner that wanted it moved off the property. They're cutting the corner. And I requested that from the start. And until now, today's the first day I've heard about that. Just going through the numbers, I've seen where the general residential landowner, not the farmer, they pay somewhere between nothing and $1,000 for whatever the tile project is that's going on. And when this was proposed in, because it was on my land, I was getting assessed $3,000. So basically, I'm paying an extra $2,000 for something I requested be moved to start with. My question is, how does that $2,000 go away now if it's moved off my property like was requested in the first place?
Good question. Ron or
The parcel that he is looking at does have a residential portion to it. It also has the acreage on the west side that is currently used for agricultural purposes. My understanding in meeting with him on Wednesday is he is not cash renting it to the adjacent landowner, but the adjacent landowner is using it for agricultural purposes. That's why it was assessed as an agricultural use acre. It is a low area where the main tile goes through it, and without the tile it would have a intermittent flow stream that ran through the middle of that acre that now doesn't. It goes underground as soon as the water quantity is small enough. So under current use, we said that he had 1 acre of agricultural use land out of his building site acreage because that is what is happening now.
All right.
So the assessment will stay at the 3,000, is that what I'm hearing?
Unless there is a covenant or some other restriction that would change our opinion, based on our observations, it's agricultural loose land. We treated it like farmland, and our recommendation is that the assessment would stay the same.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Ron.
Yep. Thanks, Ron.
If I could comment on
Mhm.
it, by the lay of the land, everything from there and continuing to the west the natural flow, it's overland water when it rains hard is where it goes, so it continues downhill from my property anyway. That's just coincident where the old tiles went in the lowest area. The tile really isn't gonna affect my land anyway. It's all downhill from there and beyond. So I guess I just don't see where I get the so-called, 15% benefit or whatever. And the reason I didn't rent it was there's no access to that except through my property or the Koppelman property as it's farmed right now. So, I mean, all I got to, it's as simple as don't farm it anymore and it's over with. I had one other thing I was going to mention. I can't think of it right now. Oh, the reason I didn't take cash rent or whatever was, like I say, it's not accessible land, and I would spend more on lawn spray and maintenance and just caretaking it than what the land is valued as cash rent anyway. So it was in my favor just to do less work and less effort. Just, hey, turn your tractor around there and plow it once a year. I don't have to deal with the weeds that way. And that's basically what this boils down to. So that was my question, what if it was, moved to start with, how that would go away.
Sounds to me like it's not gonna, Lyle.
Yeah.
According to Ron's report. Unless there's something else we can do for him, Ron, or is that, it's ag land?
It's a board decision. Our recommendation was based on its current use, which is agricultural, not projecting future use or those kinds of things. So it is a board consideration.
Okay.
So it's residential, it's a residential rated piece of property, but it's being farmed.
No,
It's not.
there's one little piece of it that's being farmed.
An acre more or less that's inaccessible except
Chuck will
through the
pull it up.
major field. I just don't mow it. Terry just plow it up once a year. I don't want to deal with it.
You may or may not be able to see it on the report here.
The parcel is mostly
Jesse, do you want to
residential
flip it over to?
Yeah, that's what I thought. She was getting
Yeah.
it twice. He has a residential
He's
property.
got one little piece that's not usable for farmland in his size, so
If you could follow you can look at the screen, you can see the piece here. The acreage on the western side is currently being farmed. You can see that.
You can kind of see the shaded part to the left where they kind of cut the corner.
Right here.
Right there.
Right there? So that's just the only thing.
And we're gonna move the tile so there's no tile on the property.
on his property at all.
Correct.
See, if the tile was on the property, that's the highest part of the hillside. So for any future building rights or anything, basically my land is gone. I couldn't do anything, and all they've left me is land that would be the bottom of the soup hole as the water curves towards the north forest fence line and then cuts back to the southwest. And to do anything down there, you'd have to haul out 4 feet of mud and haul in 15 feet of fill. And it just, might as well just take the acre.
So Ron,
So that's why I requested it be
Yep.
moved.
Thank you, Lyle.
Thanks.
If he wasn't farming in that, or even though it's not for cash rent, it was just a parcel of his property, would it be much cheaper? You understand the question?
Our highest and best use analysis would have said that that land was not usable without the drainage system because the overland flows would go through it. And I do not know that our recommendation would change. If he'd put fill over it and put a building in it, would our value of having the ability for that water not to run through that piece of ground be different? Not probably by much.
Okay.
It may have been considered as improved pasture or something instead of tillable, but it's a C acre, which is that it was farmable with or without drainage. So I think we did consider a lower value than saying it was within that floodplain because the floodplain area is so small.
Okay. All right. Drew?
I just had a question then too, Ron, sorry, but do you know, and I don't know if you might know this answer, but then can we assess it with both features on there then as a residential and as a farmable acre?
Okay, that would be trying to give equal consideration to a 40 that had a building site. We assessed runoff value from the buildings different than the tillable acres.
Yep.
The value is the same as the hilltop because you're protecting a higher value property. And it contributes to the need for the capacity, it needs the outlet so my basement doesn't go underwater or whichever. So just the easterly acre was considered as a developed acre, and that's the $1,000 he was talking about, the normal other houses.
2 acres.
Well, 1 acre is non-benefited, 1 is for the buildings, and then 1 acre is because of the tillable land on the west side. And they can be assessed, it's not unusual to find bigger or acreages within building sites that are farmed.
So that 1 acre then has been subtracted from the building site itself?
No, it is under his ownership, it's part of his property. So his total tract size is 2.93 acres. You've got a little bit that's in road that's not charged anything to him. He's got some of it that's got some trees that has no benefit, just like other trees within the watershed.
Right.
What we looked at was the likelihood of developing that, even if the tile is moved, is not very great because that's where the surface water is going to run. So the highest and best use is an agricultural use. Yes, he owns it. It may not be practical for him to farm it, but he maybe would put 1 acre of vegetable garden out there. We don't know what's going to happen with it. We make an estimate of the potential highest and best use to that property. And within highest and best use analysis, typically the current use is the highest and best use when you get out of urban development areas. So that's what we looked at it as, was 1 acre of tillable land that's out within his 3 acre, give or take, parcel.
Okay. Any other questions?
But it is gonna be moved probably to the south then, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll get the tile moved
Thank
for you,
you.
Lyle. We'll get something done for you.
Yeah, we get something done. Okay, is there any other comments from the public? All right, at this time, hearing none, we'll proceed with bringing the issue back to the board for discussion. Motion?
I have a question. I was just wondering, I looked through the report, and I know I must have missed it, because usually I can pick up how many acres it's actually draining. How big is the whole watershed? And I can't find it. I haven't heard nobody mention the size of the acreage. And so it's just nice to know how big a site that whole thing is put together. Sometimes it's 2,000 or 3,000 acres or whatever it might be, I don't know.
I can answer that if that's all right. The map, and I thought I mentioned it earlier, but it was, the original watershed boundary was 988 acres.
So what I thought.
We've added 123, so we're about 1,100 acres.
Oh, about 1,100, okay.
Correct, yes.
And so the reason I'm asking is how you come up with the size of the pond. If it's draining 1,000 acres, 2% land or 2% pond or whatever for water quality purposes, because I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume this, but the lake that it's draining into is probably in impaired waters. I mean, most of our lakes in southern Minnesota are impaired. I don't know if it's listed on the impaired waters list, but more than likely it is.
We shoot for that 1 to 2%. That's what, if you recall back to CD 57, that was a 1%, that storage area is 1% of the watershed, and has been very effective in lowering peak flows and treating sediment. So it's a balancing act between cost benefit and how much we can get. But we've found that 1 to 2% works fairly well to handle the difference in peak flows.
Okay.
Because there's an existing peak flow, we're changing it, so we want to handle that difference.
So you're looking at specifically just the possibility of further erosion and reducing sediment. I thought there was also
peak flow.
And the peak flow is a reason for
peak flow is the main reason
for flooding and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Which causes erosion.
Correct.
Which raises the ability to have more silt, or whatever you want to call it, matter going into the water system.
And I mean, but some of the improvements will actually reduce erosion because we'll have less overland flow.
Yes.
With the tile improvement.
And so there might be less erosion because of that.
So the pond, the erosion benefit of the pond is actually an added benefit to the system.
Right.
Because there was nothing there before, now we've got a place to catch it.
I just know there's some minor pluses for having a water basin of some sort that holds it for a longer period of time, if possible. They've seen some natural ability to treat the nitrogen and the phosphorus. You know, this dissolved chemicals that are in the water, which actually is another one of the huge reasons why our lakes in southern Minnesota are listed as impaired waters. And so I was just wondering why that's being completely ignored if there's an opportunity to put something bigger in an area that's not that great for farming necessarily. It looks like it's pretty low land in that specific area where the pond is going in. Is there any consideration of something larger that might treat the phosphorus and nitrogen as a holding pond for some of the waters, you know, that go through there?
The area around the pond is a wetland, so we cannot modify that without going through other permitting. So from the ditch system standpoint, we're treating the change in peak flow, and we're treating all of the water that's coming through it. So we're providing
treating it for sediment.
For sediment
but
and
not for chemicals.
Well, anything that is attached to that sediment.
Goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. Anything that's attached to that sediment. So
if it's attached
phosphorus, nitrogen, we will see a reduction, and we have seen that on CD 57 when we monitored that. So we're trying to mimic these pond designs and watershed designs after that, because we're seeing that that's working very well.
But the pond will drain out correctly into the lake.
Except for a small portion of it that'll capture sediment.
Right. So I guess I'm just asking, I don't want to belabor this too long, but is that there's a portion of phosphorus and nitrogen that is not attached to anything. It's dissolved in the water, period. It's like when you stir up an Alka-Seltzer in a glass. It's basically dissolved.
Correct.
It's in the water itself as a chemical, as a dissolved chemical. And so was there an opportunity to even consider having a larger pond there that would have contained the water? Because we're doubling the flowage basically of this old ditch system. It's being doubled in capacity and flow. So water will go out of that entire 1,000-acre site twice as fast as it has in the past, given certain rain volume. I'm just curious what that's going to do to the lake, which is probably listed already as an impaired lake. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else that could have been considered so the water didn't go whoosh right out into the lake? You know, that's all.
The pond slows it down. The pond catches it and slows it back down.
Yeah.
So it's not going whoosh into the lake. It's hitting the pond. And
it has to go faster into the lake if it's doubling the capacity of the drainage.
Well, the existing outlet is a 24-inch tile.
Right.
The pond outlet is a 24-inch tile.
Right.
But we've got a larger tile coming into it. So we've added storage to make up that difference in flow, so that we're matching or lowering the flow from what it was now. So we're actually reducing or matching the peak flow.
I think what you're asking though is how do we remove the nitrate and phosphorus even though there is water storage? But you're talking a whole different structure.
Something larger.
Bioreactor.
Yeah, something larger too.
But there's risk to reward with those bioreactors. They're not foolproof. You have mercury issues if it's not designed right.
Well, what we could do is, we are submitting this we're working with the SWCD to get some funding on this.
Okay.
We could look at, we had looked at options for where bioreactors and other things could go. We could add those to a grant, because this area has already been targeted, and we could add those on. Now, those don't need to be part of the improvement project, but they could be added on as part of the grant that we're...
farmer or somebody wants to participate.
Yep, and we did identify some of those areas early on and brought those up to landowners. We didn't get any bites on them, but we did identify some of those areas, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Drew. Hearing at this point, Hearing no, any more
I just have
comments?
one
You have
more question
comment?
for Ron.
Question?
'cause
Okay.
I'm not sure if I understood you totally on Lyle's parcel. So if he was just using that as all yard right now, would that been looked at differently, or the fact that it's being tilled is different? So if you would have seen that acre just as lawn, how would you have determined that?
I will tell you that it would not have gotten zero benefit.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some.
It may have been a slightly reduced benefit if there was a restriction or a different use than the current agricultural use.
Okay.
But would have I gone and said, well, no, there's no benefit to that acre? No, I would not have.
It's not considered the homestead parcel, is what I'm
It is not the
Okay,
developed
thank you.
acres.
That's
As
what I
Lyle
was looking
said, that's the wet muddy spot.
Yep.
And that's why the tile went through that wet muddy spot.
Okay.
You know, for his sake, it's being moved so that there can be other development or use of that potentially in the future. But without the ditch system, it still would have been where the water always ran, and there
Okay.
would have been zero potential for change of use at that point.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
I got that too, yeah. Okay, at this point then, hearing no comments, we bringing this issue back to the board for action. So you have 3 actions with the redetermination of benefits resolution, the findings and order resolution, and a resolution for financing. What is the wishes of the board?
I will move the redetermination of benefits resolution.
Second.
And moved and second. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Now we have,
I will move the findings and order resolution.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And then the financing?
And I will move the financing resolution.
Second.
Okay, and second by Will. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And there we conclude our,
Ditch 34.
Ditch JD 34, and I appreciate everybody that came and was part of it. And, yep, thank you much.
Let's take a couple minutes and we'll do.
Yeah, we'll have about, 5-10 minutes here at the late most.
Okay.
5.
I want to welcome everybody here to the final hearings on the proposed improvements to Judicial Ditch 9. And the purpose of this hearing is to consider petitions for the drainage projects with all matters pertaining to the detailed survey reports and the viewers' reports. And we will start with the judicial documents.
Okay.
And Craig?
Okay, this is,
Ryan here?
of course, we're breaking this out into actually 3 separate hearings, basically all dealing with the same subject matter, starting with the redetermination benefits, then we'll do the north petition, and then the south petition. For jurisdictional documents, hearing notices were mailed to the landowners on May 1st, 2017. Hearing notices was published in the Free Press on the May 4th, May 11th, and May 18th. The hearing notices were posted at the courthouse. For the DNR report, we quite often do it now, but because of it's in 3 separate hearings, we'll read that after the redeterminations of benefits. When that
Okay.
are all done, okay? And actually,
That's it?
for jurisdictional documents for now.
Okay. At this time for the hearing, we will be hearing from the viewers regarding the redetermination of benefits. Hi again, Ron.
Oh, yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can tell you a little bit of the history and things on 9, and I'll keep it short because there have been other hearings and meetings. But County Ditch number 9 was originally established in about 1918. It was a tile system at that time. Subsequent to the original construction, the outlet portion of the ditch system was previously improved in the early 2000s. 2001 was completed. The redetermination of benefits is a relook at the values of the system as it exists, assuming it's in a reasonable state of repair, as constructed and subsequently improved. So what we did is we went out and we did our mass appraisal process. We looked at our 4 classifications of land, A land being lands that would being standing water cattails without artificial drainage. B lands are the lands that we would have assumed were usable as hay and pasture, or the floodplain acres that were seasonally flooded. C lands and D acres are the acres that are added the most to the benefited acres. The C land acres are acres that would normally be farmable but benefit from improved surface and or subsurface drainage. And D acres are upland acres that generally on an acre by acre basis do not benefit as much from tile. Don't say that people don't tile them, but they don't benefit equal to the C acres, so there's not much in production increase, but they do benefit in value by the drainage of the surrounding lands. The benefit values, similar to most redeterminations, are determined based on market value analysis, which is the sales approach, what a willing buyer and seller would pay for a piece of land with or without adequate drainage, and consideration of the income approach. This is done because there are no comparable sales of the A or B lands that are going to be drained and farmed in the future because of the current wetland regulations. A current wetland would be restricted from drainage, therefore can't be converted without additional cost or compensation replacement, and therefore it's unlikely that you will find anything that is a adequate before and after sale evaluation. The income approach is based on an average annual production. We used 190 bushel corn, 50 bushel beans, a weighted average longer term pricing. We used the prices of $4 for corn, $10 for beans, and with that we get an average annual potential income of $630 per acre. We use the current, as best as we can, production costs of weighted at $347. We then go through and analyze on a 100-year rainfall cycle whether or not the optimum yields are obtainable within any given of the acres. When you look at current recommended design capacity, we estimate that the A acres will still have impact during larger storms and only produce on the average 92% of their optimum yield. The B acres will produce 96%. The C acres are the best producing acres once properly drained and will produce that optimum yield. And the D acres, because some are sand, some are steeper slopes, we say will produce on that class of land only 99% of the optimum yield. Adjust the potential by the yields, subtract production costs, then you subtract the cost or the income that was out there even without artificial drainage. So for like hay and pasture, we've estimated without drainage would have an income of $75 per year. In order to achieve those optimum yields, we do understand that there are additional private costs that will have to be incurred. We've allowed $900 per acre for the cost of pattern tiling for optimum production, depreciated that over the same estimated 25-year life, and determined a net average annual increase in income. We then capitalize that potential future income to bring it back to a present value. Currently, we're using a 0.5% return on that investment, because that equates current incomes back with land sales. Commodity prices dropped, land values are trailing behind that, so the ratio is much smaller on income versus land value. When corn was $6, you could have used 8% return on investment and still met income versus land value because income was much greater. Bring that back to potential current benefit of for A acres of 4610, B acres of 3440, C acres of 2110, and the D acres of 590. As this ditch system is mostly tile, but does have the improved open ditch at the outlet end, it is slightly different than if it was considered during the original construction, where you can adjust hydrologically all of the different classes for its potential value. Because the open ditch meets recommended capacity, those individuals on the open ditch should currently be receiving 100% of their potential value because they have an adequate outlet. To compensate then for the undersized tile capacities, we use an amended proximity rate. That considers both the restriction in the hydraulic capacity and the distance of improvement necessary to get my water to that improved outlet. So if I'm a mile away, I got to pay for a mile's worth of tile or cost share into that mile's worth of tile. If I'm 2 miles away, I have to have more money because I got to pay for the first mile and the second mile. So we make a weighted reduction as part of our proximity adjustment that does include the restrictive capacity considerations of the current tile. So we determined the benefits to the various acres within this watershed. They were classified as A, B, C, D, or non-benefited, or roads. You take the potential value times the number of acres within each class. That would give us the potential or the gross benefit, which in this case are both the same because there is no adjustment in that hydrologic adjustment because some of the properties are already receiving 100% of their outlet value. Adjust it for the proximity, and that would give us the net benefit to each of the properties. The net benefit is our opinion of value added to the properties within this watershed because the current ditch system exists and assuming it's in a reasonable state of repair. There is one adjustment in consideration that we did within this system. As you get within the upper system, there are a couple of old drained lake bottoms that are not adequately drained now to be farmable in our opinion. And the highest and best use would be hay and pasture. Those lands have been identified as an A-, meaning that they started as cattail sloughs. They are restricted to its current use, which is hay and pasture, because the capacity isn't adequate to make them productive or meet the income levels necessary to make them regular A acres. So there is an adjustment that says the hay and pasture value is only 30% of the potential of conversion from wetlands to farmland versus wetlands to pasture. We also include tile benefits. Tile benefits are estimated at $2.25 per foot, $2.45 per foot, because they provide an outlet to connect all of the balance of the tile, irregardless of tile size. If I'm on the 24-inch tile, my 40 still only needs a 6 to an 8-inch outlet. It doesn't need a 24-inch tile to drain that 40. The size of the tile is to accommodate everybody else's water through the system. The seeding damages areas, because the improvement to the open ditch was constructed in 2001, those seeding damages were paid at the time of that improvement, and so there are no additional buffer strip acquisition damages to be paid. Road benefits are assessed to the road authorities based on our estimated cost savings from the construction and maintenance of the road, as well as their contribution to the system's need for capacity. With that, the report submitted said there was $2,695,307 worth of land benefits, $109,747 worth of road benefits, for a total benefit of $2,805,055. In meeting with the landowners last Wednesday, there are a couple of areas that have been drained out of the Ditch 9 watershed. If I can get the map back up.
Is his computer still there?
Yep.
These areas east of Highway 60, within sections 15, the southwest quarter of section 10, and then this little bit of a piece up here in section 3, have all been tiled back east into the lake. It is our recommendation that they be removed from the area to be considered benefited by this ditch system, subject to abandonment of the original tile lines that went underneath the highway. So if they're removed, the system should not be responsible to replace or repair the tile underneath the road in the future, because it would serve non-benefiting properties. So the original plan showed that they went across the road and gave them an outlet. That's why they were included. The outlet wasn't adequate. They had an adequate outlet to the east, so they drained them privately to the east. That would leave only the one outlet crossing Highway 60 up here in the northwest quarter of Section 10. Yes.
So they're still gonna remain the way it is then up there? Their system is still gonna just stay the way it is?
They are going to be removed from the benefiting area of Ditch 9, and not have the legal right to connect or drain into Ditch 9 as a part of that.
So they know that too, those people?
Yes, they were the ones that came in and said, we've got this all tiled back to the lake. In fact, the intake in the road ditch goes back to the lake. It doesn't go across the road. So we said, yep, the outlet under the road isn't adequate. That should be abandoned so that there is no maintenance cost from maintaining that associated to the ditch system.
And the first thing that goes on in my mind is, were they ever invited to see if they want to be a part of the ditch system?
Yes, they were included within the original watershed.
They were.
Because of the tile that went across Highway 60, gave them the outlet.
Yeah.
They came into those meetings and showed me the tile maps that said, no, that wasn't an adequate outlet. We went east with all of our drainage.
Okay.
So it's not that they don't want to be, they are not physically now draining into the system by their choice.
By their choice.
And they said, yes, remove us because we don't want to have to pay for that when all of our water goes the other way.
So none of their ditch system is a public, or is under the authority of the county?
No, their drainage to the east is all through private measures.
Private measures.
They own the tile all the way from the road all the way to the lake. That's just their issue. That's their drainage. It occurs on a lot of watersheds. When you have a choice, you go to the better outlet, which in this case was the lake.
Yeah. And what goes through my mind is that Madison Lake is listed as an impaired waters. So I don't know how. It's an opportunity to see if there's a way of, maybe reducing some of the runoff into that lake.
Well, that would be something that through either soil, water, or board initiative, you could encourage the private landowners to look into.
Okay.
The public system has no influence about the land that is tiled out of its watershed.
Yeah, so they would be treated as a point source drainage, from my knowledge of it. Their pipe that goes into Madison Lake would be a point source, more correctly, I would think, than a judicial ditch or.
No, it should be considered the same as a judicial ditch. I'm not up on the new pollution control rules for point source and non-point, but it's agricultural drainage just through private tile. I don't think that would be treated any different than a branch of the county ditch or a private branch that dumped into the open ditch. It's the same thing. It's just a private tile that's draining those lands. Yeah. It's just that it has historically been drained to the east into the lake and no longer drains into ditch number 9.
Yeah. Just something on my mind to be something up for discussion and think about, because that means that there's no other influences other than the private landowner, how that water ends up in the lake. Maybe they're doing a great job. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, so it could be wonderful.
I can't tell you what quality of outlet, whether there is any treatment or not treatment on the outlet ends, because that's a private tile of which, other than assessing, the ditch authority doesn't control, that I'm aware of, private tiling it within the county. So
right.
Okay. All right.
So with the removal of those. And one additional area where up here in section 3 on the Cope property, there's a wetland area that apparently had a peat fire and is now a WACA controlled wetland. The current wetland area is lower there in here up here, this one. The current wetland area is lower than the existing tile. I was made just now, and as part of these meetings, aware that that tile could not be replaced by lowering it because of that WACA restriction, and therefore, instead of having 16 acres of hay and pasture A- lands, those are going to be used as a part of the improvement and are non-drainable at this time, and so they should have no benefit to those 16 acres. The surrounding land can still be connected and drained and farmed, but those 16 acres cannot. So they would be removed from the benefited area as well. With those considerations, the recommended total benefits from the existing system are $2,603,000 for the lands, the same $109,747 for the roads, for a total of $2,712,807.37.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, Ron. At this time, we'll now open for public comment on the redetermination hearing. There will be time later for hearing on comments, the engineer's report, and determination of benefits. This portion hearing is strictly on the redetermination of benefits. So, is there anybody in the audience that want to make any comments on this portion? Again, if anybody wishes to make any comments on the redetermination hearings, now is the time. If not, third time's a charm. All right, we'll bring it back to the board here for consideration here. Because seeing none, we have back to the determination hearing, back to the board. So
I would move approval of the redetermination of the benefits.
Second. Second it. Move and second it. Any discussion?
I have a little discussion. Just because I'm just thinking about that portion that's being removed. Do we have to act upon removing that, or is it in a separate resolution? Because in the past, I thought when we were removing somebody out of a ditch system, you had to go through a special process to get that removed out.
That's this process.
This is one of the processes you can use to remove somebody, either through a redetermination or what's called a removal of benefits, which is under 806.
Right.
So, but
this will be enough. We don't have to go back and visit this again. Then that's my question.
Correct.
My recommendation is that the order does include abandonment of those tile branches.
You had that in.
So somebody will go in there and physically break those up and take them out.
They will be disconnected as a part of the proposed improvements, or otherwise they will be certain that they are disconnected on the west side of the highway. The highway right-of-way will still be able to use them, but the farmlands will not.
Farmlands. And then there was no landowners at all that are in this ditch system that were concerned about a larger acreage being removed out of it to share in the cost. I mean, they were fine with it.
It is physically removed currently. So we brought in acres, we took acres out. That's part of what happens within looking at the current watershed versus the watershed that was established in 1918.
It's changed over time.
The benefiting acres have changed over time, yes.
Okay. And so from your understanding, that no land from the other side of the highway is going into this system at all?
Only that portion in the northwest quarter of section 10.
Right. Okay, thank you for helping me clarify that, because that just had a big question in my mind.
Okay, did I get the motion and a second for the redetermination of the benefits? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Now we can look at the petitioner's attorney. If they have any comments at this time on the petitions, so please step forward, state your name and address.
Marty, Bruce Sellers. I'm the attorney for the north half, north petition, right?
South half.
South half?
South half.
The south petition? Yes. I'd reserve, request to reserve comment right now and have Mr. Brandel proceed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any representative from the DNR? Or
No
report? You
from
have
the DNR,
to,
so
to
we
read that?
we need to read the
Okay, Craig.
report into the record. Okay.
Well, there was a letter for ditch 9, though, I mean, in general.
Yeah, just to make it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I have to find it on the page here. From the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Division of Ecological and Water Resources. Addressed to myself, Craig Austinson, Blue Earth County Ditch Manager. Subject, Final Engineer's Report, Judicial Ditch 9, Blue Earth County, Minnesota. By the way, they only issued one report for both the north and south petitions. So this will be for both north and south petitions. On behalf of the Director of Division of Ecological Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the Final Engineer's Report for the project referenced above. In accordance with the Minnesota Statutes 103E.301, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources supports the restoration of 2 existing wetlands in the upper end of the JD9 system by increasing their water holdings capacity via modifications on the wetland outlet control. As the authority investigated whether such modifications would be authorized under the Wetland Conservation Act. DNR recommends that the establishment of a minimum of 16.5-foot wide buffer strips around the wetlands and storage areas to reduce the amount of sediment and nutrients entering the wetlands. Additional wetland restorations are possible in the watershed, and they should continue to be pursued as the project proceeds. DNR also supports the inclusion of water storage pond where the main line tile outlets into the open ditch and in-channel storage. The inclusion of water storage pond will slow the water velocity and reduce outlet flows. The storage pond should be designed in a manner that allows sediment to remain in the pond so that it's not to be transported downstream during high storm events. DNR also recommends the Drainage Authority require annual inspections of the sediment ponds to ensure sediment is removed from these basins to keep them functioning properly. DNR comments during the review period for the preliminary engineer's report requested the clarification on the cleaning and the open ditch of the southern petition area. Please clarify where the ditch is to be cleaned and what finish grade will be after the cleaning. The final engineer's report indicates 2-stage ditch is forming at the portion of the open ditch. The engineer should clarify if the work proposed in the northeast quarter of the section 17 Luray Township will include the elimination of the 2-stage ditch. We strongly encourage the Drainage Authority to avoid work that will result in the elimination of the 2-stage ditch. Removal of the 2-stage ditch will result in an increased sedimentation and downstream of the ditch. Page 5 of the final engineer's report for the northern petition indicates that 610 feet of the open ditch will be cleaned. However, according to the construction plan sheets, the open ditch stops south of County State 8 Highway 17, which is the boundary between the 2 petition areas. Further clarification in regards to any ditch cleaning needs to be provided. Table 4 and 5 depict the existing and proposed tile sizes, proposed drainage coefficients for the drainage system. A number of the drainage coefficients far exceed the half to 0.75 inches per day recommendation by the Natural Resources Conservation Services. When the proposed drainage coefficient exceeds 0.75 inches per day, the tile size should be reduced to proposed drainage coefficients is between the 0.50 and the 0.75 inches per day. Utilizing oversized tiles is not necessary to achieve the drainage favorable to crop production, and the increased cost of tile will increase the cost to landowners. The project should be modified to address these issues. The outlet is controlled by crossing number 1. That is a 60-inch diameter CMP provided by a private field drive. The CMP is the only crossing with a drainage coefficient of 0.88 that is consistent with the NRCS recommendation of 1 inches per day. The open ditch, Table 3, open ditch capacities. Crossing number 1 should remain as the control for the outlet and should be included as part of JD9 drainage system. The design hydrology outlet adequacy section in page 8 of the drainage calculations in Appendix D of the final engineer's report indicates that the improvement will reduce downstream flows and water elevations in most storm events. The DNR assumes that these results are based on having the outlet at the 2 wetlands raised. The storage pond installed in the south petition area area. Will the engineer submit an amended final engineer's report if the Drainage Authority and landowners decide the cost of these petitions and the improvement are not cost effective? If so, please provide additional hydraulic modeling of the project without the anticipated water storage facilities. DNR finds that the final engineer's report is adequate and complies with Minnesota Statute 103.301 with the condition that all storm water ponds, wetland restoration enhancements, and water quality structures as shown in the plan are fully implemented as part of the project. I request that the Drainage Authority require the project engineer to contact Kevin Mixon, DNR Regional Environmental Assessment Ecologist, and to clarify the issues pointed out in the letter prior to the hearing. All questions regarding this letter should be directed to Kevin Mixon. Again, it's signed Jim Seal, EWR Assistant Regional Manager. That's it for the DNR report.
That's it for that. Okay, thanks, Craig. Okay, I guess at this time we'll have two separate hearings. First, we'll address the North petition, otherwise known as the Doubt petition, followed by the South petition, otherwise known as the Melter petition. So we will now hear from Chuck Brandel regarding the North petition.
All right, thank you. Generally, I'll talk about the history of the entire ditch system. It's approximately 2,100 acre watershed. With the land that's been removed, we're down to about 2,050 acres for the entire watershed. It was originally constructed in 1918, so it will be 100 years old next year. The northern petition covers approximately 2/3 of the watershed, about 1,400 acres. That petition looks at the main line and branch 13 of the system. A few years ago, portions of that system were televised, and it is in very, very poor shape. There's a couple pictures on the screen showing tile that is broken and is essentially non-functioning. So the need for replacing the main line is severe in this case. The proposed northern improvement includes replacing a 28-inch line north of County Road 17 with a 42-inch line, but putting a pond right at the outlet of that area. In 2001, an open ditch was constructed. This is within the southern petition area that replaced a portion of the 100-year-old tile that was failing. So now we're just replacing the next section of the main line that was replaced 16 years ago, utilizing the depth that was gained back in 2001. So the 42-inch line will be extended up into section 9, will eventually be downsized to a 36 and a 30-inch line, and then extended up into section 4. There are two areas in section 4 that are currently very poorly drained. One of them has a structure that controls it as a wetland. The other one does not. We are proposing to modify both of the outlets of these areas to enhance them as wetland and storage areas, and then also modify the drainage system in this area so that the branch 13 to the north of the northern wetland drains directly into it. Currently, the legal tile is underneath the wetland. It's not functioning very well, but we're going to improve it so that it can drain into the wetland. The wetland can treat it. The outlet of the northern wetland currently went around the southern wetland. We're going to modify that so that it drains into the southern wetland, so we provide more treatment that way. As part of the petition, there was a overflow that if the wetland started backing up, we didn't start flooding the northern wetland, so that overflow was installed. There'll be a structure put on the southern wetland, and then that area will be converted. The redetermination had it as hay and pasture. It'll now be a wetland area. So we're providing, on the northern petition, 3 storage and treatment areas, enhancing 2 that were kind of already there, but making them work better. So a very good project. We did have the SWCD out and toured the project with some of the folks from the Soar River Watershed, and we will be submitting this to the SWCD to look for some funding for the storage pond and maybe some additional features that could be added. The SWCD has targeted this entire area as a priority area, so if the project's approved, for them to submit their funding, they need a detailed plan and cost estimate. So if the project's approved, there is potential that we could get some funding. We did try to look at some efficiencies of trying to shorten the main line. The way the topography sits in this area, where the main line is at is very low, and then there's some steeper areas that come down to it. So we really couldn't cut a lot of corners, but we did in a few areas. Since the redetermination has been approved, if the improvement is approved, we will include in the improvement the modification of the pipes under Highway 60 for that area that's been removed. So we could include that in the improvement project. We did have a meeting a week ago, or last Wednesday, a few modifications on the northern petition. On the Paulson property, that's where the 1.2 acre pond is going in. It's smaller than the previous project we talked about because we have the wetland areas that are providing additional storage also. It will have a permanent pool under the entire bottom of the pond. We are going to modify the tile alignment. Paulson family has indicated that they may expand their farm site, so we're going to move the tile further to the east to allow for that expansion and not have the tile in the way. They may, depending on timing, if the project's approved, take some of the pond material to help build a pad for their farm site. So could be a little added benefit there. The northern petition, the cost estimate for the improvement is approximately $1.2 million. To repair the portion of the system is $900,000. 1.2 includes temporary damages for construction. It also includes permanent damages for the pond, some temporary damages for spoils, and permanent damages in the wetland areas because those are now not being able to be pastured, so they'll go to a permanent easement. The approximate benefits for just under $400,000. The systems have been televised. There's areas that really have failed, so we'd like to include separable maintenance in the project. When you do that, the net costs are $336,000. The approximate benefits of $400,000. You have a net benefit of $60,000. It's our opinion that the northern petition on JD9 is cost effective, it's feasible, and we'd recommend approval of the project.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Yep. At this point, then, we'll hear from the viewers, again specific to the north petition, determination of benefits. Ron, welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of the public record, can I say ditto to a lot of the general stuff, and then you just copy it over from the other two? Otherwise, I can go through it again, but I don't know that that's necessary with the people in attendance that were here for the redetermination. But I think it should identify that it was reviewed as part of the redetermination with this improvement. So, an improvement determination of benefits is then the determination of the additional value added from going from the system that's out there today, assuming it's in a reasonable state of repair, to the conditions that we anticipate will be realized with better outlet capacity or other changes within this watershed. We do that by looking at the same types of considerations, our hydrologic adjustment and our locational adjustment. In this case, because part of the original system was at 100% capacity on the proposed open ditch, we made adjustments the same way and did them as a single adjustment, weighted number, to adjust for both the location and for the increased capacity of the system. The potential benefits and gross benefits are the same because they were what was possible out there. The adjustment then is done under a proximity rate. That proximity rate does consider basically how many A's, B's, C's, and what weighted percentage of increase that would be realized, because the A's will not go to 100% with a half-inch drainage coefficient as proposed. They will have restriction during some of the larger storms and probably only go to a 98 or 99% overall weighted efficiency when it comes to that potential benefit. The B's, C's, and D's will ultimately meet the criteria equal to the 1-inch criteria because of the storage that will remain within the lowest of those acres. So if the proximity rate would have been 65 in the original proceedings, depending on whether there's A's, B's, and C's, the proximity will go to add an additional 30 to 35% of that potential benefit to reflect the changes from this improvement. The report as submitted included those areas in section 3, 10, and 15 that were recommended to be removed from the redetermination. Similar consideration is given to this report. The areas that Chuck mentioned that are going to be wetlands will receive zero improvement benefits because they're wet marginal lands now. They're going to be, if anything, wetter once this has been utilized for the storage, and therefore there is no benefit to those areas that are within those wetlands. With that, there are damages which are temporary for the construction. That is based on a 2-year cash rent, 1 year for the construction, and a second year's worth of value to bring those acres into full production. It's our recommendation that the actual acres be adjusted at the end of the project to reflect only those damages that actually occur. Our recommended benefit is adjusted now to $397,169.50. Mr. Chairman, that's a little abbreviated, but it is the same starting point that was done during the redetermination.
Okay, thank you, Ron. At this time now, we can open up to the public comment portion of the hearing regarding the North petition. This hearing is being recorded. If you wish to make comments, please come forward and give your name and address, and courtesy, keep your remarks limited to 3 or 4 minutes. Hearing anybody to come forward in public comments for the northern part? Maybe you have it for the southern part, I don't know. Hearing none, and see, going again the second time, any comments? And going for the third time, any public comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. And action for the board on the proposed findings and order resolution regarding the north portion.
So, just for clarification, Mr. Chair, we have to act on 2 separate petitions then, even though this is being done as one system?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, okay. It just seems unusual.
It's not the Civil War or anything with the north and the south. It's just
Mr. Chair.
one came later, and
yeah.
And it was it's easy.
They all
to do
share
it
the
this way.
cost, both the north and the south.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
you need to say anything, Chuck? Because he made.
Just to clarify, if both projects are approved, you could bid them as one construction project potentially, or it could be bid as 2, either way.
Yeah, because we've had that before in the past, and I just didn't know how. I thought we combined them in the past.
I think landowners did ask to bid it as 2 projects.
Okay.
And we'll bid them very close together. So we'll try to run it as one project if they're both approved.
If it works out.
Yes.
Yep. Positively.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then I just had a question. According to the DNR letter, he asked for the project engineer for the Drainage Authority to contact Kevin Mixon of the DNR for the final review of letters. It was in the letter for final review. Is that something we do later, or we do now, or have done? That's what he was asking, if we would do that.
I'm in constant contact with Kevin Mixon, so I've talked to him a few times, and I'm meeting with him again in a couple weeks, so.
Okay, so he's had contact.
Yes, he's had contact
Just
back
want
and
to make
forth
sure we're in
with me.
compliance with his request,
Yes.
that there's no problem by doing it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, do we need a
I would move approval of the north petition.
second.
a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And now we are moving on to the project engineer's report on the south portion. The Melter
I can get the
portion.
All right, the southern portion of the project primarily deals with land south of County Road 17. Similar, same history, same ditch system. It was petitioned to improve branch 1 and branch 3, and then all of the laterals to branch 3. A portion of branch 3 is currently utilizing the old main line, which is a 38-inch line. That's oversized, but it's also a 100-year-old line. We're proposing to change that to a 30-inch line to provide the adequate size for that area. But it will be slightly deeper because we have added depth with the open ditch. The branch line will be a 24, 15, all the way down to a 10. All of the lines are sized to at least a minimum of a half-inch drainage coefficient. At the branch 1 will be an 18-inch line, and then a 12-inch line north of County Road 17. At the landowner meeting, it was brought up that a portion of branch 1 that wasn't included in the petition is having some issues and was failing, and it has been asked to include that portion within the project. It's currently a 12-inch and 8-inch line, proposing to put in a 12-inch line at slightly deeper grade. From a cost standpoint, the costs are the same as a repair. It just would be put in slightly deeper, so it'd be included as part of the improvement, even though it's kind of a repair, or putting it at adequate depth so it can essentially have a longer life. One of the DNR's comments was that a 60-inch crossing be maintained as part of the system. We are maintaining that crossing, redoing it, but putting a 60-inch culvert on the northern piece, and then providing a larger culvert to the south in case that ever overflowed. We'd have an overflow that we could control instead of it flooding into the fields. So it'll be a 2-pipe crossing, but the 60-inch pipe will still be there to control flow. And then another comment was maintaining the 2-stage ditch. We're only proposing a few spot cleanings on the existing open ditch, not a major cleaning of it. And we will maintain the 2-stage ditch. That's how cleanings have been done out there in the past, and it will be part of the specifications to maintain the 2-stage ditch as part of the system. The costs for the southern petition, as presented in the report, were $682,000 total, with $45,000 of that being road authority costs. So the landowner costs were $636,000. The addition is $58,000. That would bring the total to $694,000. When you take separable maintenance into account, that the existing system has $563,000 of potential improvements plus the 58. You have a net cost of $73,000. The benefits are just under $90,000, so you do have a net benefit of $14,000 on the proposed project. So it's our opinion that it is cost effective, feasible, and we'd recommend approval.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
Drew? One question. Can you show me on the map where that pond is in relation to the southern portion of the petition area?
The pond is on the northern portion, so if you look at, this is county, if you can see where the hand is on the screen, this is County Road 17.
Right.
The pond will be just north of the existing open ditch. And then the culvert control area will be just north of the tree area. So everything, both the northern improvement and the southern improvement, will have some sort of treatment control on it.
So that's considered the northern petition then, where that little pond is?
That's part of the northern petition.
Even though it's in the southern part of that map?
No, it's right on the southern border of the northern petition.
Okay.
Yep. And then the two-stage ditch that's forming is way on the outlet end of the system, just north of Highway 14. So we have developed somewhat of a treatment train. We are working with the SWCD and looking at putting in what's called a WASCOB, or Water and Sediment Control Basin, near the branch 1 outlet. That would be outside of the improvement, but it'd be a potential funded project to help reduce erosion and control the flow, because there have been issues with that part of the ditch caving in with all the flow that comes at it. So we provide a structure to take the water from the top to the bottom and provide some temporary storage on top. So we're working with the SWCD on that. If, like I said previously, if the project's approved, we'll put together more detailed plans and cost estimates and then submit that for funding. And this area's already been targeted, so we're hopeful that we get some dollars for the project.
The color is blue, does that mean that it has water in it year-round pretty much in that section of it?
That just means it's open ditch.
It just means it's open?
Blue is open ditch, green is proposed tile.
So, do you know, is there water in that section usually year-round?
It's flowing most of the year.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's, I think I have a picture. Here's the two-stage ditch. This is a picture from the fall.
Okay.
So, there's usually water flowing through this system.
All right.
As many ditch systems. You know, I did see a few ditch systems dry up in fall of 2012 when we were really dry. So.
All right. Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. At this point, then, we look for Ron with the viewers. Of course, specific more to the south.
Once again.
Yeah.
Ditto
we meet north and south, see?
Yes, okay. Once again, as this is a single proceedings, I won't go through all of the standard conversation on the determination and redetermination and the mass appraisal stuff. It could be included that it was discussed as part of the redetermination. This part of the ditch system, once again, is looking at the improvement of branches of tile. It does not have nearly as big of a contributing watershed to this portion. We have about short of 500 acres of actual benefiting lands that are affected by this ditch system or the improvement of these two branches. The adjustments from the potential benefit are made based on our opinion of the increase in value, subject to a single adjustment, which includes both the proximity and the hydrologic increased capacities. The acres identified are all of those that were identified as a part of the redetermination, and with our recommended report, we'll remove those couple of parts of section 15 that no longer drain into this ditch system. There are no additional road benefits included as a part of improving the tile, because all of the roads have been built and exist, and there's no indication that they will receive less maintenance or require less maintenance in the future than they currently do. So our benefit total is $86,822.17 from the proposed improvement of the Southern Improvement Petition, laterals 1 and 3.
Okay, thanks, Ron. At this point, then, we open it to public comment on the south portion. From anybody in the public wish to make a comment, state your name, address. Going the second time. Anybody wish to make public comments on the south petition? Then the third time. Third time's a charm? No? Okay. Well, hearing no further comments from the public, return it to the board for action on the proposed findings and order resolution.
I would move the self-petition.
Second?
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. What, Drew, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're moving kind of fast, Mr. Chair.
Well.
No, I know, it's getting long. I just wanted to say I'm happy to see that they're really working hard, our ditch people, working with the landowners, to incorporate things that seem to make sense, that it's already on the land, to try to help slow water down, or, the storage capacity and that sort of thing, things that make sense, at least anyway, because it's nice to see that's happening. I know in prior years, a lot of times we didn't see as much of that, and now we're seeing more of it, and I think that DNR and Bowser, I think, are looking at in a positive way, and hopefully are going to start. Bill Anderson had mentioned earlier, providing some funds to help with some of these projects as it improves water quality.
Yep, and they have, and they currently are on a separate project over near Lake Crystal. They're providing a lot of funding for that project, for these best management practices, as they call them. But they're still voluntary based. We can't force people.
I know. But I think most landowners, especially if there's some help, are willing to, or if it doesn't cost much to incorporate them as you're going along. It makes a big difference down the road, because the water is going down to somebody else usually.
It usually is.
So so I just wanted to say that part of it. And then a quick question on the size of the pond. How big is the pond? Was it it's quite a bit smaller. Is it just like 1 acre, or what is it?
2, I think.
If I could, 1.2 acres.
1.2.
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious.
The new one is.
On the
new pond.
Yeah.
The wetland areas are.
Oh, they're much larger.
They're much larger. Yeah.
Yeah.
20.
Pretty big.
About 20 acres each.
That's pretty big. Really interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Drew?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair, but I would just like to thank the staff and Ron and his team and Chuck and his team. That's a lot of work getting put into these projects, and great participation from the landowners at both the meetings last week, so I appreciate that. It makes it a lot easier when we get to this point, so thank you for that.
And with your expressions of gratitude, I don't need to say any more with that, so. Okay. Appreciate it all, and so then we have a vote before us. All those in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, thank you again for everybody for attending.
We have one more thing.
We have one. Oh, excuse me, we do. We have to do the financing, sorry.
Resolution to financing.
Okay,
This is combined, we combined both ditches on one resolution.
I'll
That's
move
the
the
way the
financing.
bonding company
and the
wanted us to
financing.
do it, so.
Yep.
I'll move the financing.
It's been moved and seconded by Will for the financing, okay? Any discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. And with that.
Change order for 86.
Yeah, we have that, but that's,
Yep, I got the last bit
we are
of ditch
concluding
after
for
the
this
day.
one, for the 9 is done.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, we have the, back here. Go ahead, Ryan. Yep.
Okay. Ryan Henniker with Ditch Management. I am proposing a memo for a change order for a current going on repair project. This is for CD 86 located in Decorah and Beaufort Township. This project was approved back in December of 16 for the $195,923. This change order is requested because the contractor found additional tile that needs repaired in the engineer's estimate of $73,825. We're asking the board for this approval because this exceeds the 30% of the original estimate of the project. We request that this change order be approved. It's in the best interest of the ditch system. And at today's meeting, I'm requesting the board approve the change order in the estimate of $73,825.
All right. So does everybody understand?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and second. Discussion. Everybody understand? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Take care. Have a good day.
Yep. Yeah, we take 5. We can start though, and yeah. Go ahead, Tricia. You want to introduce yourself? And
All right. My name is Tricia Rosenfeld. I'm with Excel Energy. I'm the Community Relations Manager here in Mayville. We cover all of southern Minnesota. With me, I have Tim Carlsgaard. He is our Communications Manager for transmission. So he's going to jump in and help me out. So we are here today to talk to you about our proposed Huntley-Wilmarth 345 kV line that we're just in the beginning stages of. So most of you know transmission, different levels. You have 345 kV, which is the higher level, what we could call as the interstate, if you're comparing them to corridors of transportation. And then you have lower voltage, 161, 115, 69. So there's different levels of the level of transmission. And this line that we are proposing, or that will be proposed, is a 345 kV line. So we did pass out 3 items to you tonight, or today. The PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to go over, the direct mail piece that is going out to constituents this week, and then also the advertisement that will go in 4 local newspapers, including the Mankato Free Press, at the end of this week. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of the project before constituents in your area were calling you with questions. So going into the presentation, I'll just talk a little bit about, first, it's going from our Wilmarth substation, which is located at our Wilmarth generating plant on Summit Avenue in Mankato. And the endpoint is Huntley substation, which is owned by ITC Midwest. So you have Xcel Energy as the owner of one end, the substation at the Wilmarth plant, and ITC Midwest out of Iowa, who is the owner of the Huntley substation at the southern point. So this is a joint project between the 2 of us. However, Xcel Energy is the lead contractor on the project. Going on to the next page, MISO, which is the Midwest or Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, MISO. They basically assign energy to all of 15 states in the Midwest and also Manitoba. So they basically manage the grid in those areas. They put out this project. We were the successful winner of the project, primarily because we are the owner of the substation at Point A, and then ITC Midwest is the owner of the substation at Point B. So essentially we were awarded the project by MISO in December of last year jointly for that reason. So this project does allow for economic benefit. Primarily it enables for more lower cost electricity generation to reach customers in the region. So generally, you're building a new transmission line for reliability reasons, correct, Tim? But this one is more for an economic reason, to provide lower rates, lower cost electricity to the higher, denser regions. So new wind, as you know, is generating right now. It's a low cost. Wind is low, primarily because there's no fuel cost to it. So we want to get that wind up to those higher, denser areas. So that in turn makes more of an economic reason to get the wind generation to the higher dense areas, and that's why it's more economic in nature. Going on to the next slide, the study area, those are existing transmission lines that you'll see on the slide. You'll see there's a 161 kV line that is orange, there's a 345 kV line that is red, and then you have a 115 kV and a 69 kV. So this project is to relieve congestion that's currently on the 345 kV line and also the 161 kV line that's going directly south. Yep, and Tim will come in and show you.
This is just a larger version of it. So here's the Wilmarth substation, just north, on the north side of Mankato, Huntley down here. So this is, Trish was talking about, this 345 line, which runs all the way to Lakefield Junction down by Wyndham. That is about 48 years old. This 161 kilovolt line is about 61 years old. So the issue is, as Trish mentioned, there's congestion because you have so much, mainly wind, that's being built down in southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, and the load where the people are using electricity is to the north, Wilmarth, or Mankato area, Twin Cities, but even the co-ops. So interesting, these co-ops are served by Great River Energy. We went to present to the co-ops, what was it, February, I think,
and Great River introduced us, they said, you know, we're very supportive of this project because they have, I think they said, a 100 megawatt wind farm in northern Iowa, Great River Energy does, and that wind farm at times is being curtailed, the energy, because there's so much congestion on these lines that they can't get their energy on there. So by building a 345, if something happened to this line here, if catastrophic event or whatever, if that line went down because of the congestion on this line, there's nowhere for that energy to immediately simultaneously move somewhere else, and we could have issues. So by building another 345 line, we add that redundancy in the system. We address the congestion issue so that we can push that lowest cost energy, which is also, natural gas is also, it's right there with wind right now as far as what's the lowest cost energy source on our systems, to push that up to the load centers. That just kind of gives you an idea of, you know, a big picture, you know, where the issue is, what the problem is. And when you talk about economic issues, MISO in their planning process, they estimate, you know, how much money is being lost to customers as far as how much more customers are paying because we can't get that lower cost energy to them.
Thank you, Tim. So going on a little bit about the route identification, we have come together, ITC and Xcel Energy, to do a lot of research that involved GIS mapping and driving and various resources that we utilized from different avenues to come up with presented route options. So if you'll look on the 2 slides ahead, you'll see the dotted green lines are different route options that are being presented at this point to the general public at our open house. And we really want to get feedback from the general public on those routes because we want to understand from them if we're missing something that we didn't find during our research. And ultimately then we will present a route to the Public Utility Commission for them to decide the route. So with the permitting, I'm kind of jumping around here. The Public Utility Commission will get 2 applications from us. They will get a certificate of need of where they have to determine if there really is need for this project. They will determine the size, the configuration, and the timing of the project. If they verify and approve that this certificate of need for this project is necessary, then a route permit will be provided to them. So we'll provide those 2 permit applications to them in the fall of this year, which is why we're doing all of our outreach and open houses at this time on the routes. So if they determine there's a need, the route permit then is comes right behind it at the same time. And then they will determine the route for this project. So we don't actually determine the route, or ITC, the Public Utility Commission, does. So we would provide them with different options and different justification as to which we believe might be the better route, but ultimately through their process, which can take over a year, they do open houses, they do public hearings, and they kind of go through the same process to really reach out to the public to get their input so that they can decide the best route according to their requirements.
And I just would note that we have to, as part of that route permit, we have to provide them 2 route options, which they can ignore, or they could take a piece of one and add it to the other one. They have an administrative law judge that will be brought in as part of that process.
If you've attended any of our rate case public hearings that have been in the area, it's very similar to that process, where administrative law judge oversees the process, gets input from them. So going on to the next slide, the preliminary route options that we have right now, as Tim mentioned, those dotted green lines are potential routes to get from point A to point B. And as Tim mentioned, we present 2 in our route permit, and then the Public Utility Commission ultimately decides what the route is. So going on to the next slide, we kind of tried to zoom in a little bit on the Mankato, Blue Earth County area. You can see that the green dotted lines run in various avenues, various corridors. Some do follow existing routes that are already in place, some don't. We wanted to make sure that there were various options to portray to the general public.
I have a question. Can I ask
yep,
you a
go ahead.
question? Trish, I did look at this. When I was looking at this, it looks like there is one route that pretty much mirrors the line that has 161 or whatever on it.
The 345 or?
Yeah, we have a line, we have a preliminary route option that follows the 345, and we have one that follows the 161.
Yep.
We have one that follows 169. 169 that jumps around Vernon Center.
But your orange line right there,
this one,
161. When it looks like it almost mirrors it, is it still a separate line, separate poles? It's just more offset, maybe a mile or something, or whatever you decide. I mean, I don't know.
Good question. In some cases, we can parallel it, but if it's possible, we can remove the existing line. And put in new structures and hang the existing circuit on one side of those structures and the new circuit on the other side of the structure.
So double circuiting.
Yes.
It's double circuit. So you'd maintain the 161 and then add the 340.
Yeah. We'd have to remove the structures that the 161 line currently sit on. Erect new structures, bigger, a little more robust.
Oh, I see. So it's still quite okay.
And what happens there is if we're able to do that, obviously we can utilize existing right-of-way. We need about 150-foot right-of-way for the 345, whereas that 161 might be, 125 or maybe even a little bit less. So we might have to purchase some additional right-of-way. Another thing that happens too is if we're able to do that, the spans can be anywhere from 800 to 1,000 feet on these 345. So you could end up with less structures out there if you remove existing ones. So if we were to remove, say, this line and put in new structures, they would be further apart, which, for the landowner who currently has that line on their property, that's a benefit. And we're able to utilize the existing right-of-way, which is less impacts on landlords.
I got you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so they can have a farther space between them, is what you're saying.
Yeah, 800 to 1,000 feet for these, for a 345.
But can you still do that if you're going to maintain the 161 on that same structure?
Yeah, you would just have to, just the conductor that, for the 161, the length.
It's different.
You just have to change each story.
Go
from probably a 500-foot span to that longer.
I just had another quick question too, I'm sure. So you've determined that the 345 additional line is needed. You couldn't just remove the 161 and put in 345 and that would be adequate, provide enough redundancy and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're making upgrades to the transmission grid today, especially, as the industry has been changing, in the last 10 years, where, we have all these new energy sources, whether it's wind, whether it's additional natural gas facilities, solar now, we're not ever doing, I guess, unfortunately for some people who have those lines on the property, we're not taking those existing lines away. We're just building more because, there's growing need. I mean, even though in some cases our electricity business is flat as far as sales.
We should get by a microphone, but that's okay.
But you're bringing, electricity from areas where all this wind is. We didn't have large transmission lines in these areas of southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, southwestern Minnesota. We were feeding farms and small businesses out there. Now, in the last 10 years, as all these wind farms have been built, thousands of megawatts of energy being generated down in this area, we've had to build basically transportation system to take that energy and bring it to market. So there's really no opportunities to actually do away with a line. It's kind of just add.
Because we're congested.
Yep, add additional lines to help carry that energy.
And with their added wind and solar, particularly wind from the south, our neighbors in Faribault County and so forth, they, we're helping.
Right,
Helping
I'm just curious.
I mean, we're helping the environment.
And I know that, just an interesting note, in talking to some of the wind developers, right now, there in this study area, there is almost no wind development.
Yeah, that's why we don't have.
There's a 200 megawatt wind farm being proposed for Faribault County.
In Albert Lee.
Yep. And I think there's a small 40 megawatt wind farm down near Winnebago that's been there for several years, but that's it. And, when you look at different counties around the state and the money that they're getting from these wind farms, it's about $1 million per 200 megawatt wind farm that goes to the local government, not counting the money that goes to individual landowners. That's a significant revenue source. Now, some counties don't necessarily, or some landowners don't necessarily want those wind farms, but, it is something that, is, if you build transmission and they see opportunities, wind farms may be proposed, going forward. Whether landowners will, decide they want those or not, that's the different issue.
It kind of depends on the wind.
I don't know if the board's aware, but they were asking, Xcel Energy, I believe, well, it's actually an outside vendor, was asking for building another plant in Mankato. And that was turned down, I believe.
Oh, natural gas.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a separate plant, generation, out off Third Avenue out there. Yeah. And for some reason, are they still going to pursue that? Is that one reason why they want to upgrade too, do you think, or not? I just want to.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
So that's the Southern Company, formerly Calpine,
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
that's formerly Calpine, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another separate project that is a power purchase agreement that we have with Southern Company. So I believe they're still moving forward with that.
Yeah, I think they're still moving
Oh,
forward.
I thought it was denied.
No.
The article I read in the paper, I thought it was.
No.
Okay, no, that's still moving.
That's still going forward?
Yeah.
Yep.
For a
Southern
third energy generation plant,
Correct,
for peak hours. Is that what it's for?
Yeah.
correct. It was formerly Calpine and purchased by Southern Company.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I was at the hearing, but I don't remember the name of the company.
Yeah, it's Southern Power, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just Southern.
Southern Company.
I thought it might relate to the generation here. I didn't know. I thought it might relate.
No, essentially they're two separate projects.
I mean, natural gas is, the perfect backup to wind. I mean, wind is 45% of the time you can expect to get to generate electricity from these wind farms. So you need that base load, that you can count on 24/7 when you need it. That's natural gas. It's cheap. It's what we're going to as we start to move from coal to gas.
Natural gas has less carbons too, so not like wind, but it's better than it's better than other. Okay, so keep it going. All right.
So just to end this, let you know a little bit, our proposed in-service date of this line is 2021. So we're very much in the beginning of the process. In fact, this is our second public meeting. Yesterday we were in the city of North Mankato. Today we were in Faribault County, Martin County. Next week we'll be at the city of Mankato. And so we want to make sure we get in front of the local government units before the open house takes place on June 20th and 21st. So that's all we have for you. If you have any other questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you, Tricia. Do we have anybody else have any comments or appreciate it? And I appreciate the heads up. Yep, we do appreciate
One of
it.
the public
All right.
hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks to Tim too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. The direct mail piece is being sent probably tomorrow.
Oh.
So my guess is folks, residents, landowners will get it by Friday.
By Friday, okay.
Yeah, it's not every resident in Mankato or North Mankato. Those are in close proximity to those two options. So there's about 25,000 that were sitting out. So,
wow.
When your phone starts ringing off the hook, you just call Tricia.
You know how to reach me.
I got a direct line to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That map looked pretty close to Skyway.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah. We'll see. I didn't say
You see that one route right through Ferguson?
They said they're gonna bypass Furnace, didn't they?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, it'd be right down there, wouldn't it?
All right, so I suppose we should go back to our county attorney for a report. Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Well, I attempted to say 7 years ago. I'm going to keep this real brief. I will provide some additional information at some point in time, but I'm not sticking specifically to the topic of caseload, but ancillary to caseload, kind of what drives our caseloads in some areas, and that has to do with when I took over, one of the things that I focused on was some of the prevention areas, and I was reminded of this last week when I was going through some information and going through the agenda and some of the documents that for the things that have come before you today. And then there was an event over the weekend that I was dealing with and whatnot that reminded me of it as well. And that has to do with in the area related to prevention in when we come to areas that some days, I look at it this way, some days you commissioners are asked to shoot at a moving target that you don't even see yet. Excuse me. What I mean by that is, for example, you talked about County Road 12 this morning. You talked about the ditch hearings that you had and everything. All of that is tangible. When in some of the areas of prevention, we see the intangibles and whatnot, and what I was reminded of over the weekend was the study a few years ago on adverse childhood experiences. And that relates to common stressors that have been linked by studies to actually cost a heck of a lot more money in the long run if you don't address them up front. So with the Child Advocacy Center, the truancy program, and some of these other areas, that's where it gets into prevention. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that, and I'm going to provide you with a little study, but anytime you get into some of these stressors and whatnot, it's the hidden costs that we have a tendency to overlook because they're not readily right there and for you to see. But I'm going to continue to focus on those areas that we can ultimately save taxpayers money in the long run. And I'm just going to hand this out just so you'll have it at your leisure reading. You can deal with some of that at your convenience, and I'll leave it at that unless anybody has any specific questions.
Thanks, Pat.
I will dispense so you can get on to lunch.
The important things right there.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
We have a meeting with you next week, is that right?
Budget stuff, yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's, all right, let's, I guess go back to our administrative services. Well, we got our committee reports.
You want to finish up the committee reports?
Who was, let's see, Drew, real brief.
I can do a brief, yeah. Last board meeting, May 16th. We had a nice luncheon I want to mention at the Landing out in Madison Lake. The gentleman, the family, whoever it is that owns that, you know who it is, Kip?
Mark Bish.
Mark Bish.
Mark Bish.
Has put a tremendous amount of investment into the entire area there. I was very impressed. I just want to say that. We went there. It was very nice. I attended the full Minnesota River Congress meeting on the 18th, Redwood Falls. It's a nice little drive. And a lot of people there, Bowser, DNR, other state departments, local watersheds, recreational groups all got together. Saturday, I attended something with the Neighborhood Association. Let's see, Wednesday. Community Ed and Rec meeting we had on the 24th, and then afterwards, the Spirit of Youth Awards. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but every year we have that, honoring quite a few youth, also adults who help bolster and help our youth in our community. So it's a wonderful thing. Melanie Schmidt, from Community Ed and Rec over at Lincoln Community Center, and of course Audra Nissan Boyer, who's the executive director. It's a wonderful event that a lot of people come to. And Monday visited, let's see here, I went to Hoover, brought my 40-some-year-old turtle that has been a pet, talked about some things about taking care of pets. Yeah.
40-some-year-old turtle?
Got it when my kids were little. And then SHAC planning meeting in St. Paul on Wednesday the 31st was all-day planning. It's about a 4.5, 5-hour planning meeting. Yeah, that's our second one we've had this year. I don't know if it's for the Minnesota Department of Health, and we have their health conference every year towards the end of September. And I'd encourage elected officials to look at possibly attending that if you would like to go. There's a lot of things that do relate to the decisions that we make. And so, as you know, I'll be the chair next year, so I'm the chair-elect this year and was chairing the planning committee for this year's 2017 conference. And then attended Patty Ziegler, our housing coordinator's retirement tea, and that was nice to see her and send her off. And then had a good meeting with Bob Meyer. Well, I think it was a good meeting, wasn't it, Bob? I guess 2 hours long. It had been a while though. And then just want to mention, oh boy, what was it, Monday the 5th? Yesterday, Safe Roads TZD. That's Nicollet County. We actually met, Blue Earth County, Nicollet County. We met over at the Nicollet County Human Service building and talked about our TZD efforts as a local organization. And that's my report.
Okay, Drew.
Took about 2 minutes.
That was pretty good. May 23rd did have Partners of Affordable Housing, and we're starting our process and interviewing candidates for a new director. Memorial Weekend activities, Memorial Day. Gerberba, then we had a special meeting on Tuesday the 30th. And then, of course, the Patty Ziegler retirement on June 1st. And a legislative wrap-up the next day, GMG in the morning. Vance was there too, and I did catch Vance at the Patty Ziegler thing. Must have been before. And then I had Cimerex Recycling on that same Friday the 2nd over in Casson. And then I did see the Bassett visitation before. Yep, so that concludes mine. All right.
And Vance isn't here today, right? He's gone?
Right.
Mark already mentioned that
We
earlier.
mentioned that in the beginning.
He's out in Washington? Is that?
Mark mentioned that earlier.
He did, okay.
He did. I joked that he did the groundwork for Ryan.
Oh,
at
there
least
you
you'd
go.
hope
Thanks,
he did.
that's right.
He did that this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Okay, so we have.
I'll move the minutes.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Move the minutes with second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Good. Passes. Bill for the weeks. You want to do? We do all three? Well, at one time.
I'll move the bills.
Move the bills. They've been moved. And second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I only had
Questions?
two.
You're limited to one.
I only had two.
Two.
Find it. Here it is. Got like 4 pieces of paper. Schwickert's on the first week was a building improvement for $16,222. I was just curious what project we were doing.
That was some repairs to the Justice Center heat pumps.
Oh, those, okay.
That my air
And then-
conditioning in my office.
Was it?
Yes, I did not have air conditioning for a few days, and it was 85 degrees in there.
I hope you went home and worked from home.
I did not.
Okay. And then Dakin applied second week. Building improvements, $6,757.
That is related to the courthouse, the chiller unit, which is part of our air conditioning system here.
The new one, the new chiller?
Mm-hmm.
Brand new.
Get you one.
So it had to be fixed, or?
Well, I don't know if it was a repair or just part of that replacement cost.
That's all I have.
Is it?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. All those in favor of approving the bills, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Okay, we have Human Resources Informational.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 4 in the packet is the HR agenda. As I mentioned, it was revised just for typographical error. So they're all informational items. Maybe in lieu of the time, I just ask if there are any questions on any of those items.
Any questions for the board? Okay. Continue on with
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 is an off-site gambling permit request from the Mankato Area Hockey Association to hold an event at the Indian Island Winery on June 24th. And so this has been reviewed by the Sheriff's Department, and we're recommending approval.
I'll move.
Second. Second. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 then is also an application for exempt permit for a raffle conducted by the Cambria Presbyterian Church coming up in October. Again, this has been reviewed and is recommended for approval.
Move approval. And move.
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Item number 7 in your packet is a request from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for a joint powers agreement with the county. This is an agreement that actually they tried to send us back in January of 2016, but sent it to an incorrect email address, and for whatever reason didn't follow up on it until now. And so we have the materials. This would be an agreement that would allow the county attorney's office, the county sheriff, Human Services, and Community Corrections access to the BCA databases that are permitted for those various county departments. There also is a secondary component of this allowing amendments to that joint powers agreement be enacted by the county attorney and the county sheriff if there are any changes. So recommending approval here today.
Motion been moved.
Second.
Second. Okay. And
Just one small thing, very small. After the first whereas, the county of Blue, I mean, just add earth in there. So just a typo thing.
Jerry, so diligent there.
Sure, we can make that adjustment.
Yep.
I think it came in a Word document, so.
All right. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. I believe
that's all we have today.
that's all we
Mr.
have,
Chair.
so am I gonna move to recess?
Where are we going?
Move we recess.
Yeah.
Second.
Move, second?
Go ahead. Second. Recess.
Meeting adjourned.